Chapter 1435. The Celestial Emperor had good intentions. Outside of Central State City, other than the wasteland, there were only mountains, so there was a lack of food and fodder. Of course, the millions of spirit creatures and waterkind warriors were not suitable to be stationed outside the city. Only by entering Central Continent City would the two clans' armies be able to rest and reorganize in peace, conserving their strength. However, the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor and the Golden Dragon Emperor both waved their hands and refused. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Emperor, but I can only accept it. Monarch, once our soldiers enter Central Continent City, they will be able to prepare for war and recuperate. But if that's the case, apart from increasing the number of soldiers in our army, there's no point in us coming to the Central Province." When the Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor refused, the Emperor immediately guessed their intentions, and a meaningful smile appeared on his face. "The two of you are unwilling to lead the army into the city. There must be other reasons and plans, right? If I'm not wrong, you want to be stationed outside the city and pin down the Devil Army?" The Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor both nodded in unison upon hearing this. "That's right, the Celestial Emperor is indeed wise. If our army enters Central State City, the armies of the three clans will all be concentrated in the city, and the demon race will be able to attack Central State City with all their strength. As long as Central State City is breached, the demon clan will obtain a complete victory. They will definitely be able to dominate the Central State, and no one will be able to stop them. The armies of our two races will set up camps 1,500 kilometers to the left and right of the Devil Race's main camp. This way, we will be able to contain and attack the Devil Race from both sides. Once the demon race attacks Central State City, we will attack the demon race's main camp with all our strength, forcing the Demon Emperor to retreat." Hearing the Monster Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor's words, the Emperor smiled and nodded. "The two of you have thought it through thoroughly. This is indeed a good plan. It will definitely restrain the demon race, preventing them from attacking Central Continent City with all their strength." The demons were far away from the northern desert. They had to end the battle quickly and not drag it out for too long. As long as we can hold on for 3 to 5 months, the demon army's offensive will naturally collapse. However, I am a little worried. If the demon army attacks the camps of the Water Clan or the Monster Clan, how do you two deal with it? The Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor had already reached a consensus, and after exchanging a smile with one another, they said in unison, "Our Emperor, only then will we be able to oppose the devilish army. As long as the demons attack one of our sides, the other two sides will send their armies to attack the demon camp or attack the demon army in a pincer attack. This will solve all the problems." The decisive battle in Central State City was not only related to the fate of the human race, but also related to the fate of the monster race and the water race. The human race was only the devil race's first target. Once the demon clan defeated the human clan and occupied the Central Continent, the next step would be to exterminate the water clan and the monster clan. The relationship between our three clans is one of mutual dependence. No one can stay out of this. The Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor nodded in agreement. He slowly stood up. His eyes sparkled as he said in a low and solemn tone, "What a good without the lips, the teeth will be cold." Well said. That was right. The Devil Clan was full of ambition. They wanted to dominate the Tianxian land and enslave all the races in the world. This was a war that concerned the fate of the entire continent. No one could stay out of it. We must work together and unite as one in order to overcome this crisis and repel the demons. The Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor also hurriedly rose to their feet before cupping their fists in salute. "Let's fight the devilish army to the death." The 3 Heaven Supremes had reached a consensus, their wills as strong as an impregnable fortress. Next, the three of them had a long secret discussion about their next move. Late at night, the Demon Emperor and Golden Dragon Emperor bid farewell and returned to their respective camps. Very quickly, 5 days had passed. On the morning of the 6th day, at the first glimmer of dawn, the great army of the Demon Clan launched their attack again. After 5 days of rest, the great army of the Demon Clan had rested and nurtured their strength. Their morale was even higher and their attacks were even more ferocious. Moreover, the Demon Emperor seemed to have guessed the strategy and plan of the three clans. He knew that the three clans would work together to restrain the Demon Clan and stall for time. Therefore, the great army of the Demon Clan had chosen to split into 2 groups. The first group was led by the Demon Emperor himself. A total of 3 million soldiers attacked Central State City with all their strength. The second group was led by Demon General Ming Yi. A total of 3 million soldiers attacked the camp of the Water Clan with all their strength. The Golden Dragon Emperor had only brought 3,300,000 Water Clan soldiers to the central state. They were stationed 3,000 miles east of the Demon Clan's camp, in a towering mountain range. Even though those 3 million Water Race soldiers were all elites, they were still able to fight back. The Water Clan had always lived in the Eastern Sea and rarely moved on land. The 3 million Water Clan soldiers' fighting strength on land would be reduced, and many aspects would be affected and restricted. It was probably for this reason that the Demon Emperor decided to attack the Water Clan's camp. After the great army of the Demon Clan set out, the situation became very clear. 3 million soldiers attacking Central State City, 3 million attacking the Water Clan's camp, and 10 million guarding the Demon Clan's camp. To the Human Clan, the Yao Clan, and the Water Clan, this was an extremely troublesome problem. The Demon Emperor's decision was not a conspiracy, but a completely overt one. The Demon Clan held the advantage of having a large number of soldiers. They were definitely not afraid of fighting head-on. However, the soldiers of the three clans were unable to fight the Demon Clan head-on. When the sun rose, the great battle immediately began. Demon General Ming Yi led the 3 million soldiers and took the lead in attacking the Water Clan's camp. Not long after, the 3 million soldiers led by the Demon Emperor also killed their way to Central State City and attacked the northern city gate with all their strength. The Emperor, the Imperial Tutor, and the various commanders all rushed to the northern city gate and personally supervised the battle. Not long after the great battle began, the Water Clan's camp sent a message asking for reinforcements from the Yao Clan and the Human Clan. The Human Clan soldiers of Central State City could not go out of the city to fight, so they naturally could not help the Water Clan. After the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor received the message, he immediately led the 1 million soldiers to the Water Clan's camp. However, the Demon Emperor had already guessed this and made arrangements in advance. The 1 million Demon Clan soldiers charged out to intercept the Yao Clan's army. In this way, the Demon Clan's army split into 3 groups and attacked the camps of the 3 clans. The 3 clans' armies could barely fend for themselves and could not help each other. Understanding the situation, the Emperor, Heavenly Net Demon Emperor, and Golden Dragon Emperor were both furious and helpless. Unknowingly, 4 hours passed and it was almost noon. The Demon Clan army led by the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor was fighting fiercely with the 1 million Demon Clan soldiers in a majestic mountain range. Although the Demon Clan army fought bravely and wanted to break through the obstruction of the Demon Clan army and go to the Water Clan's camp, the Demon Clan army did not stop. But the Devil Race army stopped them regardless of everything. Millions of Devil Race soldiers rushed forward without regard for their own safety, firmly blocking the Yao Race army in the mountains. The two sides fought for 4 hours. The sky was dark and the earth was dark. Corpses were strewn all over the mountains. Blood dyed the mountains red and gathered at the foot of the mountains to form a red river of blood that surged. Chapter 1436. The Million Mo army was determined to die. Even if they had to perish together with the Yao army, they would not allow them to reinforce the Water Race camp. If this continued, both armies would be wiped out, or even completely wiped out. Heavenly Net Yao Emperor's heart was burning with worry. He tried to think of ways to break out, but they all ended in failure. He charged forward to kill the enemy without any regard for his own safety, but he was held back by several Mo experts. There was also the 300,000 Mo army. They formed an ancient Mo battle formation and attacked him together. Even though he had the strength of the primordial spirit realm, he was surrounded and could not change the situation. Outside the north gate of Central Continent City, the 3 million Mo army was attacking with all their might. Deafening battle cries, collisions, and explosions converged into a torrent of sound waves that spread across the land for thousands of miles. On the plains outside the city, the corpses of hundreds of thousands of Mo soldiers were piled up into a small mountain of blood. Dark red or purple Mo blood soaked the plains into a swamp. The ground was covered in blood-colored mud. The moat under the city gate was also blocked by a mountain of corpses. The Red River water surged out and flowed freely on the plains. The Mo army suffered heavy casualties, but their attacks were even more ferocious. Countless Mo soldiers were in a killing frenzy. They did not care about the cost to break through the city. The human soldiers guarding the city also suffered heavy casualties. There were countless soldiers dying at every moment. The human soldiers stationed in the city could only continue to reinforce. They relied on the defensive formation and the city walls to resist to the death. The Yao and humans were unable to reinforce the water race camp. The situation of the water race camp became worse and worse. A few days ago, the water race soldiers came here and built a large army camp in the mountains. They could not move on land. Their strength was greatly reduced. Also, they had only been stationed for a short period of time. They could only set up some basic defensive measures. They could not make the camp impenetrable. Facing the 3 million MO army, the water race soldiers resisted to the death. Although the battle had already been going on for more than 4 hours, the water race camp had not been broken through. But the water race soldiers had suffered heavy casualties. More than 700,000 soldiers had sacrificed their lives. The defensive formation of the camp was constantly being torn apart, with holes appearing one after another. Countless devil race soldiers poured into the devil race's camp through the gap like a tide. The warriors of the water race fought bravely against the enemies and mended the gaps in the formation. They were barely holding on. If the war went on like this, the waterkind camp would be broken in 4 to 6 hours at most. By then, the waterkind camp would be destroyed, and the 3 million waterkind warriors would be crushed as well. Once the army of the water clan was destroyed, only the monster clan and the human clan were left. They would not be able to hold on for long and would eventually be destroyed. In short, in the current war situation, a slight move could affect the entire situation. The Nephilim Emperor was cunning enough to analyze the situation thoroughly. His first move was to kill, which was why he was in such an unsolvable situation. The Celestial Emperor, the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor, and the Golden Dragon Emperor were all at their wits' end. It seemed that the situation was about to develop according to the Demon Emperor's plan. The plan of the alliance between the 3 races would soon be dismantled by the Devil race. It was at this moment that the palace in the depths of the monarch's residence suddenly lit up with golden light. A 10,000 feet tall golden light phantom appeared in the sky above the imperial palace, illuminating thousands of miles of land. The few god-tier masters and crown princes who stayed in the imperial palace were awakened by this earth-shattering phenomenon. They looked up at the sky and exclaimed, "It's Ji Tianxing. What kind of godly technique did he cultivate? Such an earth-shattering phenomenon, illuminating thousands of miles of land. It must be a peerless godly technique. This is great. Ji Tianxing has come out of seclusion at the right time." The army of the devil race has split into 3 and is attacking the camps of the 3 races crazily. The situation is very critical. If Ji Tianxing were to make a move now, he might be able to turn the situation around. Ji Tianxing has already surpassed all the god-tier masters and is in primordial soul supreme who is on par with the Celestial Emperor. He is standing at the pinnacle of the continent. With his strength and means, he will definitely be able to resolve this crisis. Just as the god-tier masters and crown princes were discussing, a different scene was happening in the secret chamber of the imperial palace. Huff! Ji Tianxing exhaled a long breath of turbid air and slowly retracted his hands that were forming hand seals, ending 20 months of bitter cultivation. These 20 months were not the longest time he had been in seclusion, but it was the time he had gained the most and his strength had improved the most. After all, the palace master, Emperor Yi, and the other 3 had imparted their lifetime's worth of skills to him. His strength had reached the peak of the 4th level primordial soul realm and was not far from the 5th level. He had also cultivated many secret techniques, and his combat strength had reached an immeasurable level. It was no exaggeration to say that his strength now stood at the pinnacle of the continent. He could even be ranked in the top 3 and look down on all the heroes in the world. When he ended his seclusion, he exuded a domineering aura that looked down on the world. Every move he made triggered the power of heaven and earth. This feeling of being close to a god made him feel as if the world was in his grasp and he was invincible in the world. So, this is what it feels like to be in primordial soul supreme and the peak of martial arts. If the palace master, Emperor Yi, and the other 3 hadn't imparted their lifetime's worth of skills to me, how long would I have to cultivate to reach such a level? I hope they can recuperate well in the imperial palace and return to their peak in 100 years. During this period, leave the chaos of the demon race to me. I will definitely kill the ancient demon emperor and wipe out all the demon race. Ji Tianxing murmured in his heart. He was grateful to the palace master, Emperor Yi, and the others from the bottom of his heart. He slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was as sharp as thunder and lightning, cutting through the darkness of the secret chamber. At that moment, the domineering aura that he exuded all retracted back into his body like the tide. His aura was extremely restrained, and he became like a mortal, unperturbed. Apart from the powerful aura that came from the depths of his soul, ordinary people could not tell his strength at all. He looked around and saw that the secret room was empty. He was the only one there. He immediately frowned. Where are the palace master, Emperor Yi, and the others? Could it be that they have exhausted their magic power and went into seclusion to recuperate? With that thought, he released a powerful divine sense that spread out in all directions and enveloped the entire imperial palace. After advancing to the primordial soul realm, his spirit evolved into a primordial soul. Naturally, the power of his spirit also became divine sense. It possessed even more powerful power, and its effects were also more powerful. When he released his divine sense, the world within a radius of 500 miles was enveloped. Every blade of grass, every tree, every grain of sand, and every rock in this area could not escape his probing and perception. However, he searched the entire imperial palace and did not detect the aura of the Emperor Lord and the other three. Strange, where did they go? Didn't the palace master say that they would recuperate in peace in the imperial palace after imparting their skills to me? Chapter 1437. Just as Ji Tianqing was filled with doubts and his expression was unreadable, a mysterious gem in the corner of the secret room lit up with a dense white light and condensed into a screen of light. A figure in a purple robe with snow-white hair appeared on the screen of light. It was Gu Daoxian, the academy master. The headmaster stared at him calmly. His eyes were kind and the corner of his lips curled into a comforting smile. Tianqing, by the time you see this, my 3 junior brothers and junior sisters will have already left this world, Tianqing said. The academy master's voice sounded. His tone was calm and serene, without a hint of sadness or regret. There seemed to be a hint of relief in his voice. Ji Tianqing was stunned. He stared at the screen of light and his face turned pale. What? You are all? The academy master's voice sounded again on the screen of light. No need to be sad or surprised. This is an outcome that was destined long ago. Please forgive me for deceiving you. We used the Great Enlightenment technique and passed on our lifetime's worth of skills to you. The price is, we will all vanish into thin air. However, we have no regrets. We have a clear conscience. I also believe that the current you is already standing proudly at the top of the continent. You are qualified to fight against the demon emperor and even kill him. That's all we can do to help you. Of course, this may not be called help. It may be repaying a debt of gratitude. In short, I leave the chaos of the demon race to you. The fate of the Tianxian continent is also up to you to decide. If fate wills it, we will meet again in the next life. When the time comes, I hope all the mysteries will be solved. As the academy master's voice slowly dissipated, the blazing white screen of light also gradually faded. The mysterious gem became ordinary and lost the effect of the image. During this process, Ji Tianqing could only look at the screen of light and listen to the academy master's last words. After all, that was only an image that the academy master had set up beforehand. He could only look at it but not talk to it. Ji Tianqing finally understood everything. However, his body froze on the spot. His heart was heavy and his face was ugly. He had hundreds of regrets and thousands of hatred in his heart, but he could only suppress them. He seemed to have lost his soul and revealed a bitter smile of self-mockery. He murmured in a sorrowful tone, "Ha! I should have thought of it. How could there be such a miraculous thing in the world? How is it possible for you to return to your peak after 100 years of recuperation? However, why are you doing this? Why are you sacrificing your lives to help me break through to the primordial spirit realm? What have I done to deserve such treatment from you?" He didn't blame the manor head and the other 3 for making the decision on their own, but his heart was filled with regret and guilt. The palace lord, Ranhuang Yi, and the others had sacrificed their lives to help him. To him, this was an enormous pressure and responsibility. He silently swore that he would do everything in his power to kill the ancient fiend emperor and avenge the mansion master and the others. After a long time, he finally calmed down and muttered in a low voice. I never expected that the parting would come so suddenly, and it was so sudden that I was unable to bid farewell to all of you. But, I will never let your sacrifice be in vain. Tens of billions of human beings will remember you forever. With that, he stood upright and looked towards the north with a burning gaze, his entire body bursting with killing intent. Of course, aside from these matters, he also had a regret in his heart. He had long wanted to ask the palace lord where he had settled Yun Yao after bringing Yun Yao to Shenwu continent. Unfortunately, he had only met the palace lord a few times before. Every time they met, it was a matter of life and death, and he had never had the chance to ask this question. Furthermore, the chaos of the demons had yet to be resolved, and whether or not he could survive was still unknown. His chances of going to Shenwu continent were even slimmer. Now that he had finally mastered the divine art, he had the chance and qualifications to ask this question. However, the palace lord had long since disappeared. Ji Tianqing could only suppress this regret in his heart and slowly resolve it in the future. His top priority now was to quickly understand the situation in Zhongzhou. North gate of Zhongzhou city. Millions of human soldiers were doing their best to resist the demon army's attack. The battle was in full swing, and the defensive array shone with a dazzling brilliance. All sorts of earth-shattering noises could be heard. Batch after batch of heavily injured human soldiers were carried out of the array. Corpses after corpses of human soldiers were carried down the towering city walls and sent to the main camp in the city. The empty positions were quickly filled by batches of human soldiers. Outside the city walls, millions of skeletons were piled up into mountains as they madly charged towards the north gate and the tall city walls. More than 2 million demons spread out across the vast land, using their battle array to unleash powerful attacks. Magical beasts as large as mountains, specters, and evil souls were flying in the air above the battlefield. The battle had reached its most desperate moment. More than 800,000 human soldiers had died, while hundreds of thousands of demons had died. High in the sky, the emperor wielded the human emperor's sword and led several commanders to attack the demon emperor. The ancient demon emperor relied on the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler's formidable power to face many powerhouses alone. He did not seem to be at a disadvantage, and instead, he had beaten everyone black and blue. Suddenly, a beam of spiritual light flew from the city gates and landed in the imperial tutor's hand. The imperial tutor caught the spiritual light and saw that it was a communication jade slip. He hurriedly used his divine soul to read the message in it. After reading it, his expression immediately changed. His blood-stained face revealed a look of deep surprise. Emperor, Tianqing has come out of seclusion. The imperial tutor looked at the emperor with glowing eyes and transmitted the message. Perhaps because he was too excited, his voice was trembling. The emperor was fighting fiercely with the demon emperor. His golden robe and cape were torn, and he was covered in blood, but he did not care. When he suddenly heard this news, his cold and serious expression immediately relaxed. We can still hold on for 2 more hours. Tell him to quickly reinforce the water tribe camp. The emperor made a prompt decision and gave the order to the imperial preceptor through telepathy. The imperial tutor hurriedly obeyed and sent the jade slip back. About 100 breaths later, he saw a dazzling golden light streaking across the sky above Zhongzhou city like a shooting star. That golden shooting star flew out of Zhongzhou city in the blink of an eye, and headed toward the water tribe camp in the northeast direction. Seeing this, the emperor and the imperial tutor heaved a sigh of relief. They murmured to themselves, Tianqing, Tianqing, whether the water tribe camp can be saved and whether the situation can be reversed, it all depends on you. At the same time, the ancient demon emperor also sensed that something was wrong. He waved the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler and unleashed a barrage of attacks, forcing the emperor and the commanders to retreat. Then, he turned around and was about to fly away. Of course, the emperor knew that the demon emperor wanted to rush to the water tribe camp to check on the situation. But how could he let the demon emperor do as he wished? He waved the emperor's sword and charged toward the demon emperor. He ordered in a deep voice, "Everyone, attack with all your might. We must stall the demon emperor no matter what." Chapter 1438. Ji Tianqing wanted to kill the ancient demonic emperor immediately. However, he knew that the ancient demonic emperor had the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler and could not be defeated easily. Now that the demonic army had split into 3 groups and attacked the camps of the 3 races, the situation was very dangerous. At this critical moment, he could only suppress his anger and killing intent and focus on the big picture. He had to save the Sea Tribe camp first. He used his fastest speed and shot across the sky like a shooting star. In just a few seconds, he arrived above the mountains thousands of miles away. He was still 150 miles away, but he could already see the situation clearly. The Sea Tribe camp occupied an area of 400 miles and was surrounded by 5 mountains with a vast valley in the middle. The 5 mountains were covered by a defensive array, and the entire Sea Tribe camp was covered by several 7-colored light barriers. More than 1 million Sea Tribe soldiers lined up outside the camp and relied on the defensive array to resist the attacks of the demonic army. However, the Sea Tribe camp was in a perilous situation. The few defensive formations were broken and torn apart over and over again. Countless warriors were killed every single moment. Especially the mountain in the southwest. The defensive array was full of cracks and was in imminent danger. Half of the mountain had been turned into ruins. In a short while, that array would completely collapse and become a huge gap. In the mountains surrounding the campsite, the entire area within a radius of a few hundred miles was covered in darkness. It was an army of more than 2 million demons. When they gathered together, it was like a black sea. The two sides were fighting fiercely, and the scene was bloody and tragic. The mountains and the ground were dyed red with blood. The blood of the soldiers on both sides gathered in the valley to form rivers and blood lakes. The sky was filled with black clouds, and demonic chi filled the sky. The blood chi and souls of the millions of corpses condensed into a bloody mist that flowed slowly in the sky. Ji Tianqing could even see a few blood gods clones that had just reached the soul tempering stage not long ago greedily devouring the blood chi and souls. He raised his head to look at the sky and saw the figures of a few powerhouses fighting endlessly. The Golden Dragon Emperor, dressed in a golden robe and covered in golden scales, was fighting 6 powerful demonic army soldiers alone. Among them was demonic commander Dark Knight, who was covered in 9 underworld armor, King of Nightmares, who was attached to the demonic god scepter, and 4 soul-tempering stage demonic army soldiers. No matter how strong the Golden Dragon Emperor was, he could easily injure any one of them. However, the 6 powerhouses didn't want to kill the Golden Dragon Emperor. They only wanted to keep him entangled, not giving him a chance to escape. The Golden Dragon Emperor couldn't help but roar with fury as he looked on helplessly as countless Water Tribe soldiers were slaughtered by the devilish army. At this time, Ji Tianqing finally arrived at the battlefield. After seeing the situation clearly, he flew to the southwest of the camp without hesitation and used a secret technique to attack the demon army below. Meteor shower. He stepped high into the sky, and his clothes fluttered about. Flames that overflowed into the heavens lit up, and an aura that could destroy the world erupted. Dense flames appeared in the distant sky, falling down like meteors. In the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of fiery lights pierced through the demonic clouds that covered the sky and poured onto the ground like a torrential downpour. Those were more than 30,000 huge fireballs. They were formed by the violent heavenly flames and possessed the terrifying power to incinerate everything. Suddenly, the area within a radius of a few hundred kilometers was illuminated by the fiery lights. Terrifying heat and air waves dispersed the blood mist and black clouds that filled the sky. Over 1 million warriors of the Demon Clan and the Water Clan all sensed the apocalyptic aura. They all raised their heads to look at the sky, showing an incomparably frightened face. Boom 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 boom. Before the demon soldiers could react, the meteor shower that blotted out the sky and covered the earth drowned the area within a radius of 100 kilometers. A deafening sound burst out, reverberating endlessly in the sky. The mountains and earth within a radius of a few hundred kilometers shook violently and huge cracks appeared. The 500,000 demon soldiers that were attacking the defensive formation were swallowed by the boundless sea of flames. They struggled in the sea of flames, roaring and letting out heart-wrenching screams. However, all of this came to an abrupt end and gradually dissipated. After 10 breaths, the 500,000 demon soldiers were burned to ashes. They were all dead. The mountains and earth within a radius of 100 kilometers were also burned into a lake of magma, surging with scarlet flames. Ji Tianqing used a secret technique to cleanly and neatly kill the 500,000 demon soldiers, which immediately stunned everyone. Whether it was the demon soldiers or the Water Tribe soldiers, all of them were dumbstruck as they looked at the sky and let out frightened and shocked cries. The Golden Dragon Emperor, Demon Commander Dark Knight, and the others who were fighting were also shocked by this earth-shattering movement. Everyone stopped fighting and looked at Ji Tianqing in shock. They all had different expressions on their faces. The Golden Dragon Emperor was full of excitement and laughed heartily. Demon Commander Dark Knight and the other demon experts were as if their parents had died, and their bodies were cold. Ji Tianqing stood proudly in the sky, looking down at the sea of fire. He murmured to himself with an expressionless face, "The blood feud of the past, the grudges of the past, it's time to end it. The road of revenge has just begun." Only by slaughtering all the demons in the world can I be worthy of those who died. After saying that, he opened the world in the sword and called out the little black dragon, Qian Yu, Ancestor Sanju, the Golden Mountain King, and the others. He pointed at the battlefield below and ordered expressionlessly, "Kill! Kill all of the demons!" Ancestor Sanju, the Golden Mountain King, and the others immediately obeyed and used earth-shattering techniques to kill the demon army. Ji Tianqing did not waste any time and rushed to the demon army not far away, using his secret technique to start the massacre. Great Tao Imperfection, Pure Heart, 3 Pure Qi, Mysterious Heaven Demon Suppression. He formed a seal with both hands, forming a mysterious hand seal. His whole body bloomed with dazzling golden light, turning him into a golden light giant that was 30 meters tall, as sacred and dignified as a god. When he chanted the incantation and used the Pure Heart Demon Suppression art, his whole body erupted with a divine golden light that covered the sky and swept in all directions. Boom! The dazzling divine golden light exploded like a mushroom cloud, enveloping an area of 50 kilometers. At least 300,000 demon soldiers were drowned in the divine golden light. In that moment, he seemed to have become the golden sun in the sky, illuminating the world. The area of 50 kilometers was filled with demon soldiers, blood energy, and demonic clouds. It was truly a land of evil and filth. However, under the illumination of his divine sun, all evil was dispelled. The bodies of the 300,000 demon soldiers quickly eroded, shattering into thousands of pieces that scattered like sand. High in the sky, thousands of golden lotuses bloomed and fell like a downpour. On the ground, green sprouts sprouted from the dark brown desolate mountain range, showing signs of vitality. Such a miraculous scene was like a miracle. Chapter 1439. After Ji Tianqing appeared, he only used 2 secret techniques to kill more than 800,000 demon soldiers. The number of the demon army was reduced by a third. The morale of the demon army was hit hard. Many of the soldiers were terrified. They stopped moving forward and did not dare to attack again. There were also many demon soldiers who stopped attacking the Water Tribe camp. Instead, they joined forces to attack him. Near the southeast mountain, almost 400,000 demon soldiers formed a battle formation. They released hundreds of light pillars that shot towards him like a rain of arrows. The hundreds of dark red light beams were very powerful. They were comparable to the attack of an immortal soul stage elder. However, Ji Tianqing did not care. He did not use his golden wings. He only used his mana shield to protect himself. Bam bam bam. The hundreds of light beams hit him. There was a series of dull sounds that reverberated in the sky. Ji Tianqing was covered by the light beams. However, he was unharmed. In the blink of an eye, he rushed out of the light beams. Star-shattering fist. With a cold expression, he roared and punched at the 400,000 devilish soldiers. Boom boom. 2 fist shadows that were as huge as mountains fell from the sky with destructive power. They hit the demon battle formation and there were 2 earth-shattering sounds. Instantly, the mountains and the ground within 100 miles were smashed into ruins by the star-shattering fist. A huge crater appeared. Dense cracks extended all around the huge pit, and a torrential cloud of dust burst out. The mountains and the ground within a few hundred miles were shaken by the violent impact. The fate of the 400,000 demon soldiers was self-evident. They could not resist at all. They were smashed into pieces by the star-shattering fist. Blood splattered everywhere and scattered in the huge crater. After a dozen breaths, the earth-shattering sound gradually disappeared. Another 400,000 demon soldiers were killed. There were only about 1,600,000 left. The situation was reversed. The scales of victory were tilted towards the Water Tribe. The 1 million demon soldiers that survived were scared out of their wits by Ji Tianqing. Their expressions and eyes were filled with fear and shock. None of them dared to attack the Waterkind camp again. They all stepped back in fear, wanting to stay away from Ji Tianqing. In the Waterkind camp, over 2 million Waterkind warriors cheered out in high spirits. Not long ago, they were besieged by the demon race's army, and the situation was precarious. Their hearts were heavy and filled with despair. However, after Ji Tianqing arrived, he only used 3 secret techniques to unleash a destructive power that could destroy the heavens and earth, slaughtering 1,200,000 devils. This was simply an unbelievable miracle. He was the peerless god of slaughter. All the water-kind warriors saw the hope of victory. How could they not be excited? High up in the sky, Demon Commander Dark Knight, Nightmare, and several other demon race powerhouses were still attacking the Golden Dragon Emperor with all their might. Seeing the situation of the battlefield below, Demon Marshal Dark Knight and Nightmare both turned pale with fright. Stormy waves rose in their hearts. They had all fought Ji Tianqing before, so they understood Ji Tianqing's strength. It was precisely because of this that they felt the most shock and disbelief. Damn it! 2 months ago, that little bastard was still in the soul-refining realm. How did he become so powerful now? This is impossible. How did his strength increase so much in just 2 months? No! We must stop him. We must not let him slaughter our army again. Demon Marshal Dark Knight and Nightmare exchanged a few words before giving up on attacking the Golden Dragon Emperor. They went all out to attack Ji Tianqing. Whoosh! With a flash of black light, the two of them attacked Ji Tianqing from the sky, launching a pincer attack from the left and right. Nether Assault. Demon Marshal Dark Knight's whole body emitted a cold black light. He brandished his black broadsword and stabbed out a pitch-black sword light at Ji Tianqing with all his strength. That pitch-black sword light was condensed from the incomparably pure netherworld chi. It contained a powerful death energy that specialized in restraining the spirit. Nightmare also controlled the Demon God Scepter and released the power of the Demon God Scepter. It condensed 3 10-meter-long blood-colored sword lights and fiercely slashed at Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing, who was casting spells to slaughter the demon army below, seemed to be unprepared for the attack of Demon Marshal Dark Knight and Nightmare. Seeing this scene, the Golden Dragon Emperor and countless soldiers of the Water Tribe all showed worried looks and shouted one after another, reminding Ji Tianqing to be careful. However, just as the nether sword light and the blood-colored sword light were about to hit Ji Tianqing, he suddenly turned around and looked at Demon Marshal Dark Knight and Nightmare with a sneer on his face. I've been waiting for you for a long time. There was no doubt that after slaughtering more than 1.2 million demon army, he expected that Demon Marshal Dark Knight and Nightmare would not be able to hold back and launch a sneak attack. Therefore, he had long been prepared. Draw your sword. With a cold shout, Ji Tianqing instantly pulled out the Sword of Burial of Heaven and brandished a 100-meter-long golden sword light to meet the nether sword light and the blood-colored sword light head-on. Boom! Amidst the deafening collision, the pitch-black nether sword light and the dark red blood-colored sword light were cut into pieces on the spot and splashed in the sky. The power of the golden sword light was not reduced in the slightest as it instantly cut through the sky and hit Demon Marshal Dark Knight. Crack! With a crisp sound, a huge gap was cut open on the black armor worn by Demon Marshal Dark Knight, and dense cracks appeared on it. The violent and unparalleled force of impact sent it flying back, and it fell 10 miles away. Dark purple demon blood spurted out from the cracks in the armor and sprinkled in the sky. Nightmare was dumbfounded on the spot and exclaimed in shock. How is this possible? You actually destroyed the 9 underworld armor. Others might not know, but it was very clear that the 9 underworld armor worn by Demon Marshal Dark Knight was a primordial spirit armor refined over 1,000 years by gathering the 9 underworld's chi and cold iron. It was with this 9 underworld armor that Demon Marshal Dark Knight had dominated the continent for 1,000 years and had almost never been defeated. But now, Ji Tianqing had destroyed the 9 underworld armor with just one slash. What kind of terrifying strength was this? After Ji Tianqing sent Demon Marshal Dark Knight flying with one slash, he charged towards Nightmare without hesitation and sneered with a sinister face. What's the big deal about destroying the 9 underworld armor? I also want to destroy the Demon God Scepter. Stab. With a furious roar, he thrust his sword with all his might. A cold light bloomed and crossed 10 miles in the sky in an instant, hitting the Demon God Scepter hard. Bang! Nightmare could not dodge in time and was stabbed by the cold light on the spot, producing a dull and loud sound. A dazzling cold light exploded in the sky like a huge mushroom cloud rising into the sky. The Demon God Scepter was blown away on the spot, and a few cracks appeared on the pitch-black scepter. Nightmare's consciousness was also blurred by the impact and he could only be blown away with the Demon God Scepter, smashing into the sky 10 miles away. Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to chase after him. He used the divine concealment step to cross the sky and caught up with Nightmare with a whoosh. Chapter 1440. Ji Tianqing's sword was simple and unadorned, but it contained the concept of returning to one's natural state. He did not slash out sword light, but used the sword of burial of heaven to directly slash at the demon god scepter. The demon god scepter was, after all, a primordial soul-level magic treasure that had been passed down for 10,000 years. Its power and defense were very strong. Only when the sword of burial of heaven collided with the demon god's scepter could the scepter be completely broken and destroyed. In the next moment, the pitch-black and cold sword of burial of heaven fiercely slashed at the demon god's scepter. With a crisp crack, the mysterious and ancient demon god scepter was cut in half at the waist. The scepter was broken into 2 pieces, and its surface was covered with dense cracks as it flew out. The sacred item of the demon race, the demon god scepter that represented the authority of the demon emperor, was destroyed just like that. The 2 pieces of the scepter fell from the sky, and soon completely collapsed, turning into fragments that filled the sky. A shadowy and illusory mass of black gas flew out from the countless fragments, and fled towards the north in panic. That was the nightmare. It was not a physical object, and did not have a body of flesh and blood. It could only attach itself to the demon god's scepter, or parasitize the dreams of others. Now that the demon god's scepter was destroyed, its strength was greatly reduced, and it also lost its powerful protection. In its panic, it subconsciously turned around and fled, only wanting to immediately escape back to the demon race's camp. But Ji Tianxing came to aid the water race's camp not only to kill the demon race's army, but also to kill it and demon commander Dark Knight. How could he let it escape? Whoosh! With a flash of golden light, Ji Tianxing directly teleported 15 kilometers, blocking the nightmare's path. He waved the sword of burial of heaven in his hand, and ruthlessly slashed at the nightmare. Bam! The nightmare was slashed by the sword of burial of heaven on the spot, and exploded into thousands of wisps of black gas, scattering in all directions. However, those thousands of wisps of black gas quickly gathered again, condensing into a mass of black fog. Kakik! Ji Tianxing, you want to kill me? Stop dreaming. I am immortal and indestructible. Nightmares were special demonic creatures. They were not made of flesh and blood, nor were they made of spiritual energy. They could only be killed by special means. To ordinary powerhouses, it was practically indestructible. Unfortunately, it encountered Ji Tianxing and was destined to meet a tragic end. Indestructible? Are you worthy? Ji Tianxing snorted contemptuously. He suddenly raised his left arm and shot out a huge golden palm that blotted out the sky. Heaven-seizing palm. In the blink of an eye, the golden palm wrapped around the incubus and dragged it back to Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing activated the power of the heaven-mending orb and released a sacred white light that enveloped the nightmare. Shwa! Under the purification of the holy white light, the nightmare was like snow under the scorching sun, melting in the blink of an eye. Ordinary experts could not kill it, but Ji Tianxing could use the heaven-mending orb to completely destroy it. After dealing with the nightmare, Ji Tianxing raised his head and looked at the sky in front of him, looking for the figure of Demon General Dark Knight. Demon General Dark Knight had already treated his injuries and was about to rescue the incubus. Seeing that the situation was not good, he turned into a black stream of light and turned to fly toward the north. Before escaping, he did not forget to give a cold shout and order to the demon army. Retreat, quickly return to the camp. You're about to die, and you still want to escape? Ji Tianxing snorted coldly, and his figure flashed and teleported dozens of miles away. He appeared in front of Demon General Dark Knight out of thin air, holding the sword of burial of heaven in his hand, and stopped Demon General Dark Knight. Demon General Dark Knight, do you still remember when I escaped from the northern desert and you chased me to the Mangu mountain range? He looked at Demon General Dark Knight with a cold expression, and his eyes were surging with an icy cold light. Demon General Dark Knight gripped the black broadsword tightly and stared at him with a gloomy gaze, silent and not saying a word. Ji Tianxing snorted coldly. Back then, if I wasn't lucky enough and Emperor Yi repelled you in time, I'm afraid I would have been killed by you long ago. From that day on, I made up my mind to kill you with my own hands and take revenge. And today is the day of your death. 2 years of enduring humiliation and painstaking cultivation were all for this day, to wash away the humiliation and hatred from back then. Ji Tianxing's entire body erupted with soaring killing intent, and his eyes were extremely cold. As his voice fell, he waved the sword of burial of heaven in his hand, and a crescent sword light that was thousands of feet long swept out. Demon General Dark Knight, die! As his angry shout sounded, the crescent sword light that was thousands of feet long instantly drowned Demon General Dark Knight's figure. Demon General Dark Knight revealed a look of horror and despair, and hurriedly unleashed all of his power to condense a magical power shield. Moreover, he desperately waved the black sword, slashing out sword light that filled the sky to block Ji Tianqing's attack. But it was all in vain. Kaboom! With a thunderous sound, the sword light and the black light shield that filled the sky were cut into countless pieces. Without the protection of the 9 underworld armor, Demon General Dark Knight was also cut in half by the crescent sword light, and his body was split into 2. Swoosh! A dark purple soul flew out of the corpse. It actually did not turn around to escape. Instead, it swelled violently, brewing an incomparably terrifying aura. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and revealed a look of surprise. You actually want to self-destruct? You want to die with me? Demon General Dark Knight, you're too naive. Obviously, Demon General Dark Knight knew that it would be difficult to escape and that he would die without a doubt, so he decisively self-destructed. He wanted to die with Ji Tianqing, and kill countless Water Clan soldiers along the way. Only in this way would his sacrifice be worth it. However, he underestimated Ji Tianqing's strength. Even more so, it could not imagine how powerful Ji Tianqing's divine abilities were. Great Freedom Soul Destruction Slash. Ji Tianqing shouted coldly with an expressionless face. He waved the Burial of Heaven and slashed out a hidden and invisible sword light, attacking Demon General Dark Knight's soul. The invisible and huge sword light contained a very terrifying power that specialized in destroying soul power. Before Demon General Dark Knight's soul could self-destruct, it was hit by the Soul Destruction Slash. Boom! With a dull bang, Demon General Dark Knight's soul collapsed on the spot. It was blasted into pieces by the Soul Destruction Slash and scattered in the sky. Demon General Dark Knight fell and was completely obliterated. Ji Tianqing activated the power of the heaven-mending orb again, and waved his hand to release a sacred white light that enveloped the fragments in the sky. The fragments of Demon General Dark Knight's soul were quickly devoured by the heaven-mending orb. On the battlefield below, countless soldiers of the Demon Clan and the Water Clan witnessed Ji Tianqing kill Nightmare and Demon General Dark Knight with their own eyes. Everyone revealed an incredulous expression and was filled with shock. No one could imagine that the incomparably powerful Demon General Dark Knight and Nightmare would be so weak in front of Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing only used a few moves and killed 2 powerhouses in a short 20 breaths of time. What kind of terrifying strength was this? The Water Clan soldiers became more and more spirited, their morale soaring as they let out earth-shattering cheers. More than 1 million Demon Clan soldiers were frightened to the extreme. They retreated in a sorry state like a black tide, quickly retreating to the north. Chapter 1441. The crisis in the Water Tribe camp was resolved. More than 1 million Devil Race soldiers retreated back to the Devil Race's main camp in a panic. The Water Race soldiers took advantage of the situation to pursue and killing batch after batch of the Devil Race army. The Little Black Dragon, Qian Yu, the Golden Mountain King, and Forefather Trialt charged at the forefront and massacred the demons. Of course, Ji Tianqing wouldn't let the Devil Race's army escape back to the Devil Race's camp. He also began his pursuit, unleashing devastating attacks to vent his fury on the demon army. Meteor Shower. Star-Shattering Fist. In a short span of 100 breaths, he had killed hundreds of thousands of demons. The remaining hundreds of thousands of demons had already been utterly defeated. They were scattered into dozens of groups and desperately fleeing through the mountains and rivers. Ji Tianqing couldn't be bothered with these remnants of the demons. He left them to the Water Tribe soldiers to deal with. He flew back to the Water Tribe camp and looked at the Golden Dragon Emperor. The Golden Dragon Emperor had already stopped fighting, and was directing the Water Tribe soldiers to repair the camp. Previously, he was besieged by Nightmare, Demon Commander Dark Knight, and several other demons. Even though he was at the Essence Spirit Realm, he couldn't escape. After all, Demon Commander Dark Knight and Nightmare both had Essence Spirit Realm magic treasures. Their fighting strength was comparable to Essence Spirit Realm experts. After Ji Tianqing killed Nightmare and Demon Commander Dark Knight, the remaining few Soul Refinement Realm demons were quickly killed by the Golden Dragon Emperor. Swoosh! The Golden Dragon Emperor flew across the sky and stopped in front of Ji Tianqing. A gratified smile appeared on his face as he studied Ji Tianqing with shining eyes. He said somewhat emotionally, "Tianqing, I trust you've been well since we last met." Ji Tianqing nodded and smiled. "Greetings, Your Majesty Golden Dragon Emperor." The Golden Dragon Emperor stared at him and said with emotion, "I didn't expect you to grow to this extent in just a short year. Your strength has surpassed mine. It's incredible. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it." It was true that the Golden Dragon Emperor was only at the 3rd level of the Essence Spirit Realm, but Ji Tianqing was already at the peak of the 4th level. Furthermore, his true battle power was not as simple as a 4th-level primordial soul stage cultivator. The Golden Dragon Emperor's words were definitely from the bottom of his heart, and they were filled with shock and admiration. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything. He just smiled and cupped his hands. "Your Majesty Dragon Emperor, I'll leave this place to you. The Devil Emperor is attacking Central Continent City. I have to go back and help the Emperor immediately." Golden Dragon Emperor's smile faded as a serious expression appeared on his face. It said that the Devilish Emperor possesses a divine tool that defies the heavens, so you have to be careful. You go and assist the Emperor Lord first. After this Emperor has settled down my clan's soldiers, I will head to Central Continent City to assist. Ji Tianqing nodded, said goodbye to him, and turned to leave. Right now, in Central Continent City, the battle situation was intense to the extreme. The Demon Emperor personally led an army of over 1 million demons to attack the Northern Gate. The other 1 million Devil Race soldiers went all out to attack the East Gate. It was obvious that the Demon Emperor had sent half of his forces to attack the East Gate, hoping to enter the Central Prefecture through the East Gate. Below the Northern Gate, everything within 50 kilometers had been reduced to rubble. The ground was filled with huge ravines and deep pits. The moat had long been destroyed. Countless deep pits were filled with dark red blood and piles of corpses. The Devil Race army was still charging bravely, their battle cries shaking the heavens. Inside the city walls, the 1 million human soldiers were still bitterly holding on. Every moment, tens of thousands of human and demon soldiers were sacrificed. The sky above Central Continent City was completely shrouded in black clouds and a bloody mist. 10,000 meters above the ground, the Emperor Lord, the Imperial Tutor, and several human commanders were fighting the Devil Emperor. Even though the Emperor Lord and the others had the advantage in numbers and were attacking the Devil Emperor from all sides, they were no match for the Devil Emperor. However, none of them were a match for the Devil Emperor, and none of them were able to injure him. On the contrary, the Emperor's preceptor and the few human commanders were covered in wounds and blood by the Devil Emperor. There were also 2 commanders who had been sacrificed in the previous battle. These 2 commanders had been recruited by the Imperial Court. They were hermit experts who lived in seclusion from the world. Their deaths were extremely miserable. The Devil Emperor had reduced their physical bodies to dregs and even their souls to pieces. The Emperor Lord's injuries were slightly lighter and not life-threatening. The Imperial Tutor, Xueqi, Divine Dr. Bailey, and the others were all heavily injured and on the verge of death. They grew weaker and weaker, their speed slower and slower, and their injuries worsened. If not for the Emperor Lord using all his strength to block the Devil Emperor's attacks and shoulder 80% of the pressure, they would have been killed long ago. Even so, the situation was worsening. In at most 100 breaths of time, the Imperial Tutor and the commanders would be completely exhausted. At that time, they would find it very difficult to retreat to Central Continent City, and would definitely be killed by the Devil Emperor. Just at this moment of life and death, a hidden and formless figure sped over from the distant sky. It was Ji Tianqing. He flickered 3 times in the sky and teleported 100 miles away, appearing not far behind the Devil Emperor. He hurriedly unleashed a mystic technique to attack the Demon Emperor upon seeing that the Devil Emperor was wielding an ice-cold, pitch-black ruler. Big Dipper Sword. He let loose a low roar as he wielded the Sword of Burial of Heaven, unleashing 7 streaks of golden light that enshrouded the Devil Emperor's body. In that instant, dazzling golden light erupted and illuminated the sky within a radius of 200 kilometers. This area was transformed into a holy world of golden light. The peerlessly terrifying sword intent seemed to be tearing a series of rifts in the sky. No matter how powerful the Devil Emperor was, he didn't expect Ji Tianqing to appear at this time. Furthermore, he didn't expect Ji Tianqing to grow to such a level. By the time he sensed that something was amiss, it was already too late. Bam 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 bam. 7 consecutive muffled booms erupted high in the sky, as if 7 bolts of divine lightning had struck. The terrifyingly powerful golden sword projection instantly shattered the Demon King's magic power shield before stabbing into his body viciously. His entire body was covered in ice-cold, pitch-black scales and possessed an extremely powerful defense. However, 7 bloody holes immediately appeared on his broad back and waist, from which dark purple demonic blood spurted out. Each of the bloody holes was the size of a bowl, and they were so deep that his bones could be seen. Roar! The sudden extreme pain caused his body to tremble violently, and he let loose a pained roar as his body convulsed. He immediately circulated his energy to shatter the 7 streaks of golden light before abruptly turning around. His 4 eyes were as red as blood as he glared hatefully at Ji Tianqing. When he saw that his assailant was Ji Tianqing, his expression changed drastically, and a look of intense shock appeared on his face. Ji Tianqing. It's actually you, you bastard. You actually injured me. How is this possible? At that moment, his heart was extremely shaken, and a storm was set off within him. Ji Tianqing stared at him coldly as a cold smile appeared on his face. Heh heh heh. Nothing is impossible. 3 years ago when you broke the seal of the Sky Pillar sect, I silently swore that one day, I would personally kill you and avenge the deaths of my fellow sect members. Chapter 1442. Originally, Ji Tianqing could cultivate peacefully in the Sky Pillar sect and live a peaceful life. With his talent, he could have inherited the position of sect master in a few years. He and Yun Yao could also see each other every day and love each other. But all of this was ruined by the Demon King. After the Demon King broke the seal, not only did he destroy the Sky Pillar sect and kill countless people, but he also almost lost his life. From then on, he hated the Devil Emperor to the bone and swore to kill the Devil Emperor to avenge himself. It was also from then on that his fate changed. In the past few years, he had suffered countless dangers and tribulations, and he almost lost his life countless times. The main culprit behind all of this was the ancient Demon King. In this world, the person that Ji Tianqing hated the most and wanted to kill the most was the Demon King. The ancient Demon King calmed down and stared at him with venomous eyes. He said in a low and cold voice, Ji Tianqing, you are indeed the successor of the Kenshin bloodline. You are so monstrous. I have never seen someone as monstrous as you in tens of thousands of years. In just 2 months, you have broken through the Essence Soul Realm and even reached the 4th level of the Essence Soul Realm. This is definitely a miracle. The Kenshin bloodline is so powerful. The ancient Demon King did not know the real reason for Ji Tianqing's sudden increase in strength. He only thought that it was the heaven-defying effect of the Kenshin bloodline. He even suspected that Ji Tianqing had undergone some kind of bloodline awakening to become so powerful. At that thought, he coveted the Kenshin bloodline even more. His heart was filled with jealousy, so much so that his eyes turned red. He wanted nothing more than to kill Ji Tianqing immediately and take the Kenshin bloodline for himself. Ji Tianqing did not reply. He looked calmly at the imperial tutor, Yun Zhongqi, and the rest. He said, everyone, leave this to us. Go back and recuperate. The imperial tutor, Yun Zhongqi, and the others all hesitated for a moment and cast inquiring gazes at the emperor. The emperor took a deep look at Ji Tianqing. After seeing his strength, he nodded to everyone. Listen to Tianqing. Only then did the imperial tutor, Yun Zhongqi, and the others retreat into the distance and give him a few words of advice. Emperor Tianqing, you must be careful. No matter what, you must return safely. After saying this, the imperial tutor, Yun Zhongqi, and the others flew back to Central Continent City, their bodies covered in wounds and blood. Only Ji Tianqing, the Celestial Emperor, and the Demon Emperor were left above the clouds. The 3 of them stood in the sea of clouds with cold expressions, their bodies surging with killing intent. Ji Tianqing and the Emperor stood on the left and right of the Demon Emperor, facing each other from 10 miles away. Both of them had their left hands behind their backs and their right hands wielding divine swords as they stared coldly at the Demon Emperor. Ji Tianqing's gaze was fixed on the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler in the Demon Emperor's hand. It was a dark purple ruler that was as wide as a palm and about 5 feet long. Its design was exquisite and beautiful. The ruler was straight and narrow. Its surface was engraved with ancient runes and symbols that flickered with purple light. The ruler's surface was covered in a layer of purple mist. It was mysterious and cold and had the effect of suppressing the soul and primordial spirit. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly as he thought to himself, the Demon Emperor's strength has only recovered to about the 5th level of the primordial spirit realm. He is not much of a threat to me. However, the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler in his hand is a true divine artifact. It has the power to destroy the world. Back then, He used this ruler to severely injure the manor lord and dig out his deity heart. I wonder where the devil emperor obtained this divine ruler from? He had always had this question in his heart, but he could not find an answer. At this moment, the Empyrean emperor looked down at the north gate of Central State City. He frowned and pondered for a moment before sending a voice transmission to Ji Tianqing. Tianqing, we have to lure the demon emperor further away. This place is too close to Central State City. If we fight with all our strength, the shockwaves from the battle will definitely endanger Central State City. If the defensive array is destroyed, Central State City will be breached. The consequences will be unimaginable. Ji Tianqing nodded to express his understanding. He pointed the burial of heaven at the demon emperor and said in a contemptuous tone, "Demon emperor, everyone knows that I am your nemesis and nemesis. Today, we will fight to the death and settle this once and for all. Not only will I kill you, I will also wipe out your army of 10 million and slaughter the entire northern desert. If you have the guts, come with me." With that, he held the burial of heaven and flew into the distance. The demon emperor also had the same intention. He did not want the shockwaves from the battle to harm the demon army attacking Central State City. He held the extreme soul-severing ruler and sneered with a sinister expression. Then, he chased after Ji Tianqing into the distance. "Little bastard, so what if you have reached the primordial spirit realm? This emperor has cultivated for several thousand years. How can you imagine the remarkable abilities and methods I possess? You think you are worthy of being this emperor's nemesis? This emperor will tear you to pieces and take your Kenshin bloodline." After about 30 breaths of time, Ji Tianqing stopped in the air above a majestic mountain range. This place was over 1,000 li away from Central State City. The shockwaves from the battle between the three of them at full strength would not destroy the defenses of Central State City. He stood in the sky above the mountains, towering above the clouds. The demon emperor followed closely behind. He waved his dark purple ruler and slashed out giant purple blades of light that blotted out the sky. Soul-severing slash. Following his furious roar, 9 gigantic blades of purple light that were thousands of meters long slashed towards Ji Tianqing as if they could split the heavens and earth. The strange thing was that the 9 purple blades of light were very illusory. They were clearly not real. This was the divine power of the extreme soul-severing ruler, a strange power that specialized in destroying souls and primordial spirits. Although Ji Tianqing was confident, he was not arrogant. He looked warily at the demon emperor and used all his strength to block the 9 purple blades. Great Freedom Soul Annihilation Slash. He waved the sword of burial of heaven and slashed out 9 invisible sword flares that were over 1,000 feet long, slashing at the 9 purple blades. These 9 invisible sword flares were similar to the soul-severing slash. They were both powers that countered souls. In the next moment, the 18 sword flares clashed with a loud boom. Bang! 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 The 9 invisible sword flares immediately collapsed, turning into violent shockwaves that swept out in all directions. The shockwaves scattered the clouds in a radius of several dozen li, turning it into a blank area. However, the 9 purple soul-severing slashes did not dissipate. Instead, they slashed at Ji Tianqing. Bang! 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 Ji Tianqing was sent flying 10 miles away by the attack. Fortunately, he had cultivated the Dhamma body of heaven and earth and the true self Dhamma form. They withstood the power of the 9 soul-severing slashes. His physical body and primordial spirit were unharmed. However, his primordial spirit was shaken, and his consciousness was a little blurry. The demon emperor took the opportunity to pursue. He sneered and waved his ruler again, slashing out a few more giant purple blades. At this moment, the emperor had arrived. He quickly waved the sword of the human sovereign to meet the demon emperor. Glaze Emperor Sword. He waved the sword of the human sovereign and slashed out golden sword flares that covered the sky. They formed a golden wall that looked like glaze, blocking the demon emperor's attack. Ji Tianqing was sent flying 10 li away. When his primordial spirit came to, he immediately teleported back and used his secret technique to attack the demon emperor. Chapter 1443. Bang! 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 Ji Tianqing, the imperial emperor, and the devilish emperor were fighting fiercely in the high sky. The three of them unleashed their ultimate techniques and unleashed destructive attacks. The collisions created earth-shattering noises. Colorful magical lights illuminated the sky for hundreds of miles. The vast sea of white clouds was also scattered by the aftermath of the battle. The figures of the three flickered back and forth in the sky, appearing and disappearing at times. Ordinary people could not even see the figures of the three clearly. They were not even qualified to watch the battle. After all, the three of them were the three most powerful supreme warriors in the Tianxian continent. The heaven-shaking and earth-shaking battle continued for a full half an hour without stopping. The devilish emperor wanted to end the battle quickly and kill Ji Tianxing and the imperial emperor as quickly as possible. This way, he could break into the central state city as quickly as possible and reduce the losses of the devilish army. Therefore, he performed the secret skill of the devilish Tao with all his might and urged the power of the extreme Yin soul-rending ruler. The attacks released were extremely terrifying. Ji Tianxing and the imperial emperor worked together, yet they could not do anything to him. On the contrary, they were beaten back continuously. The imperial emperor was already heavily injured. After fighting for half an hour with the devilish emperor, his injuries became even more miserable. The golden dragon robe he wore had already been shredded into pieces and only a tattered armor was left on his body. Through the cracks of the armor, one could clearly see that he was bleeding all over. His chest and back were covered with hideous wounds that revealed his golden bones. The golden crown on his head was also shattered. His long hair was drenched in blood and draped over his shoulders in a mess. He waved the mortal sovereign's sword and performed his unique skills while panting violently. Pain and fatigue were written all over his face that was covered in blood. His eyes also became dim and lifeless. Especially his primordial spirit, it had been hit by the extreme Yin soul-rending ruler several times. It was already covered in wounds and his power was depleted. More than half of his spiritual power had been consumed and his power was extremely weak. He could not hold on for much longer. If he continued to fight, his life would be in danger at any time. The devilish emperor would most likely destroy his divine body or even kill him directly. Ji Tianxing also looked somewhat miserable, but his injuries were lighter. His long hair was disheveled, his face was stained with blood, and his white robe was also dyed red. On his chest and left arm, there were 2 chopstick-sized wounds. They were so deep that his bones could be seen, and blood was flowing freely. Even though he had cultivated the heaven and earth Dharma body, and was able to gather the power of heaven and earth within 1,000 miles to defend against the Fiend Emperor's attack, it was still too late. Unfortunately, his primordial soul realm strength was not enough to withstand the terrifying power of the Tai Yin soul-splitting ruler. In comparison, the Devil Emperor's injuries were the lightest, and his strength was the most vigorous. There were also several wounds and bloody holes on his sturdy body, but none of them were fatal, nor did they affect his ability to fight. After exchanging a few more blows, the Demon Emperor suddenly sensed a flaw in the Celestial Emperor's defense and immediately grinned. Long Xuankuan die. He shouted coldly and wielded the extreme Yin soul-severing ruler with all his strength, shooting out 3 dazzling purple lights. Pang pang pang. 3 streaks of purple light condensed into a long spear and ruthlessly struck the monarch, enveloping his body. One of the purple spears hit his left shoulder, turning it into a bloody mess. His bones were shattered, and his entire left arm was almost broken. The other 2 spears hit his chest and abdomen, piercing through 2 bowl-sized bloody holes. After suffering such heavy injuries, the monarch's physical body was on the verge of death. His primordial soul was also severely injured, and his consciousness became blurry. He almost fainted. He was sent flying as blood spurted out from his nose and mouth. The mortal sovereign's sword almost flew out of his hand. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the devilish emperor wielded the extreme Yin soul-severing ruler again, wanting to kill the celestial emperor's primordial soul in one fell swoop. Ji Tianxing's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His heart was burning with worry as he rushed over to stop the devilish emperor. Heaven-splitting sword. He unleashed all his strength, holding the sword of burial of heaven with both hands, and slashed out with all his might. Pang! The 1,000-feet-long golden sword shattered the devilish emperor's attack and blocked his way. The devilish emperor was instantly enraged. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he roared with resentment. "Little bastard, since you want to die so badly, I will grant you your wish." In the previous battle, he could have killed the monarch several times, but Ji Tianxing blocked him every time. That was why Ji Tianxing was injured. There were several wounds and bloody holes on his body. The devilish emperor had been holding back, waiting for an opportunity to kill the monarch. Now, he had seized another opportunity, but it was still resolved by Ji Tianqing. He could no longer hold back his anger as he roared hysterically. Ji Tianqing, since you are so protective of Long Xuanquan, I will kill you first before killing him. Let's see who can save Long Xuanquan after I tear you into pieces. As he roared, the devilish emperor unleashed all his strength and channeled it into the extreme soul-severing ruler. Swoosh! The dark purple ruler immediately expanded to 10,000 times its original size, turning into a 10,000-meter-long ruler. It hung high in the sky like a purple rainbow. The ruler lit up with a purple light that covered the sky and earth, covering a radius of 200 miles. The runes and symbols carved on the surface of the ruler seemed to come alive as they gathered to form a black hole. The black hole was like an abyss. It released a terrifying suction force that enveloped Ji Tianqing. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing could not resist the suction force of the ruler. He was immediately sucked into the sky and into the ruler. In the blink of an eye, he was swallowed by the extreme soul-severing ruler and was suppressed in the internal space of the ruler. Every Dharma treasure had its own Dharma treasure space, and the extreme soul-severing ruler was no exception. However, the extreme soul-severing ruler was a real divine artifact. It was different from ordinary Dharma treasures. Its Dharma treasure space was a vast and boundless world, just like a small world. However, there were no living things in this small world. There was not even a blade of grass or a tree. It was filled with a cold aura of death. Under Ji Tianqing's feet was a boundless water surface. It was as flat as a mirror, without any ripples. Above his head was a vast azure sky, with white clouds floating in it. The blue sky and white clouds were reflected on the mirror-like water surface. It was extremely clear and lifelike. As a result, Ji Tianqing could not tell whether the blue sky and white clouds were above his head or below his feet. Just as he was looking around cautiously, a blood-red light flashed across the sky not far from him. Swoosh! The blood-red light suddenly retracted, and the Demon King's figure appeared. He stood in the sky 10 miles away and looked at him with a sinister smile. Ji Tianqing, welcome to my world. Time and space are reversed. In this space, yin and yang are reversed. Heaven and earth are reversed. I am the master of this space. You have been suppressed here by me. There is no way for you to escape. Surrender obediently and accept your death. The Demon King put his hands behind his back and looked down at him. He was full of confidence and dominance. Chapter 1444. This chaotic space was the space of the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler. Now that the demonic emperor had the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler, he was naturally the master of this space. Ji Tianqing was in the chaotic space and could clearly feel the formless oppressive power pressing down on him like a mountain. In this space, there was no spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Yin-yang, and the 5 elements were also inverted. He could not absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to replenish his strength. In this space, he could only constantly exhaust his own spiritual energy. If he dragged on for too long, even if the demonic emperor did not attack, he would exhaust his spiritual energy and be crushed to death by the formless space power. Therefore, he could only end the battle quickly and could not stay for too long. The demonic emperor had the same idea. He only wanted to kill him as soon as possible and seize his Kenshin bloodline. This way, after the demonic army breached Zhongzhou City, he could sit in Zhongzhou and invade the territories of the Yao clan and the Water clan. He could then dominate the entire Tianxian continent. Ji Tianqing, stop resisting. If you know what's good for you, surrender obediently and hand over the Kenshin bloodline. The demonic emperor shouted proudly as he stared coldly at Ji Tianqing with his hands behind his back. Ji Tianqing's eyes were still cold and sharp. His lips curled into a cold smile as he said in a mocking tone, "Demonic emperor, you are too impatient and overconfident. Without the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler, what right do you have to fight me?" Indeed, if the demonic emperor continued to fight with him outside, he would not be able to withstand the power of the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler in half a day at most. He would be defeated by the demonic emperor. After all, the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler was a true divine weapon. The Sword of Burial of Heaven was just a pseudo-divine weapon that had just recovered to the primordial spirit level. In the previous battle, the Sword of Burial of Heaven had clashed with the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler more than 10 times. However, it did not gain the upper hand. Instead, the Burial of Heaven suffered heavy injuries. Even though the Burial of Heaven was once a divine sword and had god-level battle experience, it could not clash with the Tai-In soul-severing ruler. The power of this divine ruler could really destroy heaven and earth and destroy the stars in outer space. Fortunately, Burial of Heaven discovered a secret. The extreme In soul-severing ruler was not the Devil Emperor's natal magic treasure. The Devil Emperor was only using it temporarily, and could only unleash about 30% of its power. It was precisely because of this that the Emperor and Ji Tianqing were able to fight the Devil Emperor for so long. If the Demon Emperor could unleash the full power of the ruler, the two of them would have been killed by the extreme In soul-severing ruler long ago. Now the Demon Emperor was in a hurry to kill Ji Tianqing, so he put him into the extreme In soul-severing ruler. While the two of them were fighting in the space of the artifact, the Demon Emperor couldn't use the extreme In soul-severing ruler to deal with him. This was equivalent to cutting off one's own arms and losing one's strongest support. To Ji Tianqing, this was, of course, an excellent opportunity. His magic power was surging in his body as he decided to use his trump card to fight the Devilish Emperor to the death. The Demon Emperor was still full of confidence as he bellowed in a dignified manner. Ji Tianqing, you broke through to the Essence Soul realm at such a young age and became the continent's youngest paragon expert. This has already made you arrogant to the point that you are almost ignorant. Now that you have been severely injured by me, how much strength can you still retain? Even if I only use 10% of the divine ruler's power, I can still kill you 1,000 times over. I will soon let you understand the difference between you and me. It's like the difference between the clouds and the mud. As he spoke, the Demon Emperor waved his palms and conjured mystical seals. His body surged with a bloody light. Blood Sea Pagoda. As he bellowed, the mystic technique was immediately executed. Thousands of ancient demon race words and symbols surged out from his palms and flew in all directions. Swish! 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 Tens of thousands of mystical seals and symbols scattered in the sky within 100 miles. They lit up with a bloody light and condensed into a gigantic light shield. In the blink of an eye, a domain that spanned 100 miles was formed. It was like a gigantic sphere. Within the domain, endless bloody water appeared out of nowhere, forming a vast sea of blood. Huge waves surged on the surface of the sea of blood. White bones floated on the surface of the sea, releasing a destructive force. Wave after wave of bloody waves, carrying the power to devour souls and corrode bones, slammed into Ji Tianqing. The formless power of the domain suppressed him firmly, making it difficult for him to move. His strength was also suppressed and weakened. The Demon Emperor stood proudly on top of the bloody waves and said with a sinister smile, Ji Tianqing, this blood sea domain is the burial ground I have prepared for you. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing was not to be outdone and immediately executed his domain. Do you think you are the only one who has mastered a domain? Coincidentally, I have also mastered a domain that can counter your blood sea. As he spoke, he waved his palms and executed a mystic technique. His body surged with a golden light. Swoosh! 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 As he finished executing the technique, golden light surged out of his body and thousands of purple thunderbolts flew in all directions. In the blink of an eye, a golden light shield spanning 100 miles appeared out of nowhere. This was Ji Tianqing's divine thunder sword domain. The huge golden light shield was filled with purple thunderbolts that intersected with each other. They were like the veins of an array, emitting dazzling thunderbolts. The purple thunderbolts contained violent yang energy, which was the natural nemesis of the evil demonic qi. The divine thunder sword domain and the blood sea pagoda overlapped. The two were like fire and water, corroding and resisting each other. Instantly, a series of muffled sounds erupted. The power of the domain that suppressed Ji Tianqing also dissipated quickly. Undead skeletons kept surging out of the blood sea. Huge swords of bloody light covered the sky and shot toward Ji Tianqing like a rain of arrows. The divine thunder sword domain also condensed thousands of golden sword radiances. Swoosh! 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 They attacked the Demon Emperor, forming a net of golden sword radiances that covered the sky. Not only that, thousands of purple thunderbolts struck down from the sky and drowned the Demon Emperor. The two of them controlled their respective domains with all their might and fought fiercely in the blood sea. In just a short period of time, the two domains had attacked each other hundreds of times. They were both damaged and full of cracks. However, the blood sea pagoda was the first to collapse. It exploded into countless bloody shards and splashed in all directions. Although the divine thunder sword domain was damaged and incomplete, it was still intact. it could still release powerful sword radiances and thunderbolts. The demon emperor's blood sea domain was broken. His face turned pale immediately. He opened his mouth and spat out a few mouthfuls of demon blood. His primordial spirit also suffered from the backlash of the domain. His consciousness was a little dizzy and blurry. Without the help of the Taiyin soul-splitting ruler, his real combat strength was slightly weaker than Ji Tianqing's. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing immediately used all his strength to perform his ultimate move and attacked the demon emperor. God-slaying spear. He suddenly raised his left palm and released endless golden divine flames. They condensed into a 10-meter-long golden divine spear and stabbed toward the demon emperor. Swoosh! The golden divine spear instantly pierced through the sky and arrived in front of the demon emperor. Chapter 1445. Bam! With a loud thud, the god-slaying spear pierced the demonic emperor's chest. His broad and muscular chest was covered in black dragon scales and was protected by a purple robe and a soft armor. However, under the attack of the god-slaying spear, these were negligible and weak. His broad chest was pierced by the god-slaying spear in an instant, leaving a bloody hole the size of a large bowl. Coincidentally, the bloody hole was on the left side of his heart and went straight through. Through the bloody hole, one could clearly see the blood and bones in his chest. Without a doubt, the demonic emperor's heart was also destroyed by the god-slaying spear. The powerful impact sent him flying for more than 10 miles before he landed on the mirror-like surface of the water. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing slowly retracted his left palm and heaved a sigh of relief. Ha ha ha! Just as I expected, without the Taiyin soul-splitting ruler, the demonic emperor is no match for me. His heart is destroyed and his physical body is dead. Next, I can use the primordial spirit golden sword to kill his primordial spirit. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, he summoned his primordial spirit Dharma form and a giant sword shadow appeared behind him. This giant golden sword was very majestic and sacred, containing the power to split the heavens and earth. Ji Tianqing was about to cast a spell to kill the demonic emperor in the distance. Unexpectedly, the demonic emperor's figure flashed and flew up from the water. His physical body was still alive. His entire body was emitting a dazzling blood-red light and emitting a terrifying aura. Ji Tianqing, you despicable worm, I'm going to tear you to pieces. The demonic emperor covered the bloody hole in his chest with his left hand and roared in rage. As the bloody light soared into the sky, his body began to distort and change dramatically. In the blink of an eye, he turned from a 3-meter-tall white-haired man into a giant black beast that was more than 100 feet tall. The 300-meter-tall demonic beast was as huge as a mountain. The muscles on its limbs and back bulged like black rocks. It had 2 large heads and a ferocious face. Its wide mouth revealed 2 rows of sharp fangs, and its scarlet eyes flashed with murderous intent. It looked like a demonic ape, but it had 6 arms and 4 black azure wings on its back. It also had a black tail that looked like the tail of a black dragon. Ji Tianqing's face turned gloomy when he saw the black giant demon. His eyes flashed with astonishment. I've already used the god-slaying spear to destroy his heart and body. Why was his physical body still alive? And why was he able to reveal his true demonic body? Could it be that his heart is different from a human's and not on the left, but on the right? Ji Tianqing was no stranger to that black giant devil, which was the true body of the devil emperor. A few years ago, he had accidentally touched Kenshin's memory in his dream. At that time, he saw the black giant demon wreaking havoc in the mountains and rivers, wantonly slaughtering human martial artists and civilians. Later, Kenshin personally attacked and heavily injured this demonic beast with a single sword strike, sealing and suppressing it. At this time, the devil emperor looked down at Ji Tianqing from above and roared in a venomous voice, "Ji Tianqing, you damned little bastard. You've completely infuriated me. You're dead meat. Today, even the heavens can't save you. Even if you go to heaven or hell, you can't escape death." As the devil emperor roared, demonic aura surged out of his body, forming demonic clouds that covered the sky for hundreds of miles. This was one of the devil race's secret techniques. It could use the demonic clouds to change the environment and greatly increase the devil race's combat strength. After witnessing Ji Tianqing's terrifying strength, the devil emperor didn't dare to underestimate him. He wasn't in a hurry to attack. As he roared and cursed, he secretly conjured a technique to accumulate power. Do you think you can destroy my physical body just because you destroyed my heart? You're too naive. I'm the devil race's emperor, born from an ancient demonic seed. I was born without a heart. I don't have any fatal weaknesses. I have an undying body and an indestructible soul. Even Kenshin couldn't kill me back then. What makes you think you can fight me? Hearing the demon emperor's words, Ji Tianqing came to a sudden realization and finally understood the reason. I see. Undying body and indestructible soul. That's why Kenshin couldn't kill the devil emperor. He could only seal and suppress him. He murmured in a low voice. The corners of his mouth curled into a mocking sneer. His voice was as loud as a bell as he said, "Ha! So this is your secret and your greatest reliance. However, you've met me today, so you're destined to be destroyed. I'm not Kenshin. Kenshin can't kill you, but I can send you to your death." As soon as he finished speaking, he used the spirit concealment step and teleported 30 miles away in a flash. He rushed to a distance of 10,000 feet in front of the Devil Emperor. He held the sword of Burial of Heaven with both hands and stabbed at the Devil Emperor with all his might. Sword thrust. Not only did he use all his strength for this attack, but Burial of Heaven also pushed his strength to the limit, pushing the power of his sword technique to the limit. This was the combined attack of Ji Tianqing and Burial of Heaven. Its power was terrifying to the extreme. Whoosh! A cold light suddenly appeared and tore through the dusky sky. Before the Devil Emperor could teleport away, the cold light pierced through the Devil Emperor's chest and exploded inside his chest. Boom! The cold light suddenly bloomed like a snow-white mushroom cloud, rising into the sky. The Devil Emperor's mountainous figure was immediately enveloped. A deep crater with a radius of 30 meters was blasted open on his chest. Blood and bits of flesh splattered everywhere. The terrifying explosive force blasted the Demon Emperor away and sent him tumbling 20 miles away. Although his injuries were severe, they weren't fatal. He fell into the mirror-like water, causing a huge splash. He immediately got up and flew back into the sky. Worm! All of this is futile. Give up. This emperor will now show you what an undying body is. The Devil Emperor roared like thunder. A dazzling bloody light surged out of his body and quickly covered the crater in his chest. In the blink of an eye, the bloody crater quickly healed, leaving behind only a sinister scar. Anyone who saw this scene would be shocked by the Devil Emperor's powerful recovery ability and feel despair. But Ji Tianqing had expected this result. His expression didn't change as he coldly shouted, "There is no such thing as an undying body in front of me. You can repair it once, but I don't believe that you can repair it 10 times, 100 times, or 1,000 times." With that, he gripped the sword of Burial of Heaven with both hands and slashed at the Devil Emperor with all his strength. Heaven cleaving. A 10,000-meter-long golden sword light wrapped in purple lightning slashed at the Devil Emperor. Chapter 1446. Raging blood seals the heavens. The Demon Emperor roared like thunder. He waved his 6 arms and unleashed a bloody light that condensed into a bloody barrier in front of him. The gigantic sword descended from the sky and struck the blood barrier with a resounding boom, accompanied by rolling lightning and purple light. Kaboom! With a thunderous explosion, the giant sword and the bloody barrier collapsed at the same time, exploding into countless fragments that scattered across the sky. The Demon Emperor was knocked back 10,000 feet. His massive body swayed a few times before he regained his footing. Ji Tianqing was also knocked back and fell 10 li away. Seeing this, the Demon Emperor roared and launched a counterattack, unleashing a bloody light that shot toward him. Blood Dragon Slaying God. The dark red light that blotted out the sky instantly condensed into 9 bloody dragons that were 10,000 feet long. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws at Ji Tianqing. Wings of the Golden Rock. Ji Tianqing unfurled his golden wings without hesitation to protect himself. Pang 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 pang. The 9 bloody dragons struck him one after another, creating a series of thunderous booms and thousands of bloody shards. Ji Tianqing was once again sent flying, landing a dozen li away in the sky. His golden wings were undamaged, and he was also unharmed. However, the 9 bloody dragons had all collapsed. The Demon Emperor was filled with unwillingness as he charged over in a frenzy. Little bastard, this emperor will make you die without a burial ground. No matter how you resist, it's useless. This emperor is undefeatable. Only death awaits you. As he roared, the demon emperor waved his 6 arms, unleashing bloody light and demonic chi that filled the sky. They condensed into various attacks that rained down on Ji Tianqing like a torrential flood. Ji Tianqing hurriedly used the spirit concealment step. His body disappeared into the sky as he repeatedly teleported away to avoid the attacks. For those attacks that he could not avoid, he waved the Sword of Burial of Heaven and used his supreme sword techniques to block them. The two chased and fought in the blue sky. Their figures constantly flickered, so fast that others could not see them clearly. All that was left were afterimages. Outside Middle State City, the demon army had been desperately attacking for 4 hours, but they had still failed to break through the northern gate. Both sides had paid a terrible price. Both inside and outside the city walls, corpses littered the ground and rivers of blood flowed. In particular, nearly half of the 1 million demon soldiers had been killed, leaving only 800,000 or so. The demons attacked for a long time without success. Their forces were divided into 2 groups, and their offensive gradually weakened. Furthermore, the demon emperor was still nowhere to be seen. He was still fighting Ji Tianqing in the distant sky. The demon generals were filled with concern, and they ordered the demon army to withdraw 100 li to rest outside the city. The human soldiers also took advantage of this rare opportunity to treat their injuries and recuperate. Suddenly, there was a burst of exclamations from both inside and outside the city walls. Countless people were shouting in shock. What is that thing? What a terrifying scene. Could it be that the demon emperor is casting a spell? Many human and demon soldiers exclaimed in shock and confusion. The emperor's preceptor and the human commanders immediately looked towards the sky 1,000 miles away from them. They saw that a massive vortex had appeared in the distant sky. This white vortex was at least 200 li in diameter. As it rapidly spun, it stirred up tornadoes. In the center of the vortex was a dark violet ruler, tens of thousands of feet long, spinning rapidly like a rainbow. The white vortex of light wildly swallowed up everything in its surroundings. The vast sea of clouds in the sky was swallowed up by the vortex, revealing the blue sky. The earth and mountains below were also torn into countless pieces by the vortex's powerful energy, turning into endless dust. Violent shockwaves spread out, transforming into several dozen tornadoes that swept through the surrounding several hundred li. At least 30,000-foot-tall mountains were pulverized by the tornadoes, reduced to rubble. Such an earth-shattering scene caused countless people to be shocked, and they let out waves of screams and exclamations. The ordinary human soldiers didn't know what was going on. They also did not understand what this heaven-shaking sight meant. But the imperial tutor and the human commanders knew very well that the purple streak of light in the vortex was the demon emperor's heaven-defying divine weapon, the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler. Not long ago, the demon emperor had used the power of the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler to swallow Ji Tianqing. At this moment, Ji Tianqing was fighting a bloody battle with the demon emperor within the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler. No one knew how much danger he was in or what kind of situation he was in. When His Majesty returned, he was heavily injured and covered in blood. He was on the verge of fainting. Even the emperor could not stop the demon emperor and was heavily injured. Ji Tianqing's situation is bleak. That's right. No matter how monstrous Tianqing is, he's only in his early 20s. He's too young. With his 20 years of cultivation, how can he stop the demon emperor who has cultivated for thousands of years? But Tianqing has been sucked into the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler. They're fighting inside the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler. No matter how worried we are, we can't help. The emperor is already heavily injured and has returned to the city lord's residence to recuperate. I only hope that Tianqing doesn't make any more mistakes. That's right. I hope that Tianqing can hold on and defeat the demon emperor. Otherwise, Central State City will fall. The imperial tutor and the other commanders discussed, their expressions and eyes full of worry. Within the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler, Ji Tianqing and the demon emperor had been fighting fiercely for 100 breaths of time. The two of them had already exchanged over 100 blows, displaying all kinds of secret techniques and ultimate skills. The demon emperor attacked wildly, forcing Ji Tianqing back again and again. However, he could not severely injure him, only slightly injuring him. The demon emperor finally realized that Ji Tianqing's true strength had surpassed his. He could not accept this result, nor did he want to believe it. He was infuriated, and blood-red flames surged out of his body. Finally, A gap appeared in his ferocious attacks, and he paused for a moment. Ji Tianqing immediately seized the opportunity and used his trump card to counterattack. Thunderbolt. He suddenly opened the divine eye of Thunderbolt on his forehead and released endless purple thunderbolts, which gathered into a 10,000 feet long thunderbolt that blasted the demon emperor's body. Kaboom! Ji Tianqing had been accumulating power for more than 2 years for this violent thunderbolt of the 9 heavens. Its power had reached its limit, comparable to the attack of an 8th-level Essence Soul Stage expert. At that moment, the demon emperor was struck by the thunderbolt, and his flesh was instantly pulverized, splattering in all directions. The pieces of flesh and blood that filled the sky were all wrapped up by the pillars of lightning and then turned into pitch-black powder. The demon emperor's 1,000-feet-tall body was reduced to black ashes that covered the sky and scattered in the air. He never thought that the immortal body he was so proud of would be so vulnerable under the bombardment of the 9 heavens' divine thunder. Chapter 1447. The Fiend Emperor was born from an ancient fiend seed and had an almost immortal body. However, the 9 heavens' divine lightning, which was of extreme yang, would forever be the nemesis of evil and heretical Tao. If Ji Tianqing was only at the soul refinement realm, he would not be able to harm the Fiend Emperor even if he released the 9 heavens' divine lightning. However, he was now at the 4th-level Essence Soul realm and his combat strength was in no way weaker than the Fiend Emperor's. The 9 heavens' divine lightning he released could naturally destroy the Fiend Emperor's body. The black ash that blotted out the sky was about to gather and reform the Fiend Emperor's body. Ji Tianqing was already prepared. His lips curled into a sneer as he struck out with his palms, sending out a divine white light that blotted out the sky. Swoosh! The blinding white light immediately enveloped the black ash and enveloped it. When the black ash came into contact with the mysterious white light, it immediately melted away like snow under the sun. Without a doubt, the source of the divine white light was Ji Tianqing's greatest trump card, the Heaven-Mending Pearl. This divine item had many mysterious effects, but the most prominent one was to purify and devour fiends. In a short span of 10 breaths, the black ash was completely devoured by the white light. The Fiend Emperor's body was completely destroyed, leaving behind a dark red bloodlight that was still struggling violently in the white light. That was his essence soul and the source of his power. He struggled with all his might, trying his best to resist the devouring of the mysterious white light as he roared and cursed in horror. Ah! Ji Tianqing, you damned bastard! Beast! What did you do? What kind of power is that? How can it devour my immortal body? For thousands of years, the Fiend Emperor had been invincible in the Tianxian continent. Apart from Kenshin, no one could defeat him. The nurturing of the fiend seed, immortal body, and indestructible soul were his greatest trump cards. However, he never expected Ji Tianqing to possess a special power that could devour his body. The sudden turn of events filled him with fear and anger, as well as deep regret. If he had known that Ji Tianqing was so monstrous and possessed the power to kill him, he would never have kept Ji Tianqing in the Dharma treasure space of the Divine Ruler. He should have used the power of the extreme Yin soul-severing ruler to fight Ji Tianqing for 4 to 6 hours to kill him. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to regret. The light shield formed by the mysterious white light enveloped his primordial spirit and devoured his energy with all its might. He struggled desperately, but he couldn't break free from the white light's restraint. Tianqing, don't even think about it. I will never lose to you. Never. The Demon Emperor roared furiously and immediately revealed his huge Yuan spirit Dharma idol. He swore to escape from the white light and leave this chaotic space. His Dharma was a god-demon god, 1,000 feet tall god. It had a body as sturdy as a mountain and had the terrifying power to shake the sun and moon. It had 2 large heads, 8 thick and muscular arms, and 3 pairs of wings that shone with blood-red light. This god-demon god had created the blood demon sex secret technique in the ancient times. It allowed the demon race to devour the blood and souls of millions of living beings to rapidly increase their power. The blood god secret technique was one of the blood demon sex secret techniques. It was famous all over the world. The Divine Lightning Emperor swung his 8 arms wildly and slashed countless blood-red blades at the Divine Lightning Emperor's origin. Bam! 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 A series of loud noises could be heard. The Divine Lightning Emperor's origin shook violently and cracks appeared on the Divine Lightning Emperor's origin. Ji Tianqing tried his best to hold on. He continued to channel the power of the heaven-mending pearl to quickly repair the cracks on the Divine Lightning Emperor's origin. However, the Divine Lightning Emperor was pleasantly surprised when he saw the cracks on the Divine Lightning Emperor's origin. He decisively used his ultimate skill. He broke off 4 of his arms and detonated them at the Divine Lightning Emperor's origin. Bam! 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 The Divine Lightning Emperor's origin was unable to withstand such a terrifying power and shattered on the spot. The boundless blood-red flames were no longer restrained by the Divine Lightning Emperor's origin. They immediately exploded and swept across the sky like a tide. The violent impact sent Ji Tianqing flying. The Divine Lightning Emperor also took the opportunity to escape. He flew into the distant sky. Regaining his freedom and being no longer suppressed by the mysterious Divine Lightning Emperor made him feel as if he had been reborn. He only wanted to leave the Dharma treasure space immediately and return to the outside world. When the time came, he would use the Tai-Yin soul-severing ruler to cut Ji Tianqing into thousands of pieces and torture him to death in the cruelest way possible. However, just as this thought flashed through his mind, a dazzling golden light instantly woke him up. Roar! It was a giant sword of golden light that was 10,000 feet tall. It let out a clear roar that sounded like a dragon's roar from the 9 heavens. He could only watch helplessly as the sacred and majestic sword blocked his path. Then, the giant sword split into 810 golden giant swords and flew in all directions. In the blink of an eye, a giant sword formation was formed. The dazzling golden light enveloped an area of 100 miles and also suppressed the Divine Lightning Emperor's origin spirit. The Divine Lightning Emperor was stunned. He immediately waved his 4 arms and tried to break the sword formation with all his might. Although he had made a huge sacrifice by cutting off 4 of his arms, his strength was also greatly reduced. But no matter what, he did not want to be trapped by Ji Tianqing again. At this moment, Ji Tianqing flew over and stood above the dazzling sword formation. He looked down at the Divine Lightning Emperor from above. Ancient Divine Lightning Emperor, this is the Demon Slayer sword formation that I designed for you using my origin spirit sword. It contains my lifetime's cultivation and Kenshin Sword Dao ultimate technique. You must be familiar with it. Now, you have to enjoy the feeling of being sliced by thousands of swords. I will let you know what despair is. As soon as he finished speaking, he activated the Demon Slayer sword formation and controlled the 810 golden giant swords to attack the Divine Lightning Emperor. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Countless golden giant swords were arranged in a specific order and position. They attacked the Divine Lightning Emperor's origin spirit Dharma power from all directions. Each sword radiance contained unparalleled sharpness and seemed to be able to pierce through everything. The Divine Lightning Emperor was already severely injured and only had 50% of his strength left. He was also suppressed by the sword formation, so his strength was weakened. Naturally, he could not avoid the sword rain. Bam 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 bam. In the blink of an eye, the golden giant swords drowned the Divine Lightning Emperor's origin spirit. The golden swords of the origin spirit stabbed him wildly and attacked his origin spirit. There was a series of loud thuds. His origin spirit Dharma power, the double-headed blood demon that was as tall as a mountain, was instantly killed. Blood splattered everywhere as his body twisted and trembled. Even if he tried his best to resist, it would be useless. In just 30 breaths, the double-headed blood demon was sliced into pieces by the golden swords and turned into tens of thousands of bloody shards. During this process, the Divine Lightning Emperor also deeply felt the feeling of being sliced by thousands of swords. Chapter 1448. Swish! Swish! The shards of bloody light that covered the sky and the earth quickly gathered together, trying to reform the primordial spirit Dharma form. Even though the Demon Emperor was filled with despair, knowing that he had lost the upper hand and would not be able to survive today, the Demon Emperor's heart was filled with despair. However, he was unwilling to give up struggling and resisting. Soon, the tens of thousands of fragments of crimson light gathered into a ball of blood the size of a palace. Right at this moment, Ji Tianqing waved his palms and unleashed a divine white light that enveloped the crimson light. Shwa! The dense white light contained a mysterious and powerful power. After wrapping around the bloody light, it released an invisible divine power that quickly purified and devoured the bloody light fragments. The Demon Emperor struggled with all his might, trying to break free from the seal of the white light. But it was all in vain. With his mortal body and Dharma form destroyed, His strength was extremely weak. There was no way he could break free. As the dense white light continued to surge, the bloody light fragments quickly dissipated, and their numbers became fewer and fewer. Ji Tianqing extended both of his palms and continued to activate the power of the heaven-mending orb. His gaze was cold and expressionless as he stared at the ball of bloody light. After a few dozen breaths of time, the bloody light completely disappeared. The tens of thousands of bloody light fragments were all swallowed by the heaven-mending orb. The all-powerful ancient demon emperor who had dominated the continent for thousands of years had perished just like that. Ji Tianqing slowly retracted the mysterious white light and removed the devil-slaying sword formation. He calmly looked up at the sky, closed his eyes, and muttered to himself, "The ancient Diablo demon emperor has finally been killed by my own hands. He is gone forever." Palace head, Emperor Yi, Emperor Shao, Senior Sister Xueqi, do you see that? I killed the devil emperor with my own hands to avenge you. When he said these words, many images and figures of countless people appeared in his mind. Not only were there the palace chief, Emperor Yi, and the other three, but there were also Yun Yao, Ji Ku, and Shi Zhongjian, as well as many people who had died under the demon race's blade. In the past few years, too many people had been massacred by the devil race, killed by the devil emperor. Especially in the last half a year, the demon race had slaughtered hundreds of millions of human martial artists and common people. Many human experts had also died under the blades of the devil emperor and the devil race. This war was a calamity for the Tianxian land. It was also the most tragic disaster in the past 1,000 years. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing had finally killed the demon emperor, which was enough to comfort the souls of the deceased in heaven. Just as his thoughts were spinning and his expression was complicated, an invisible and majestic force suddenly enveloped him. He was forcibly squeezed out of the chaotic space-time by that irresistible mysterious force. Light flashed in front of his eyes, and he left the chaotic space-time and returned to the high sky. Not far away, the great Yin soul-severing ruler that was like a purple ray of light had stopped spinning. Shwa! With a flash of purple light, the huge extreme Yin soul-severing ruler shrunk 10,000 times, returning to its original size, which was only 5 feet long. The divine ruler didn't stop in the slightest. It turned into a purple light and flew high into the sky. Under Ji Tianqing's shocked gaze, the divine ruler tore apart the blue sky, creating a black crack in the sky. Shwa! The divine ruler rapidly drilled into the black crack and completely disappeared. Then, the black crack slowly closed, and the sky returned to normal. As expected of a true divine weapon, it can tear apart the sky and escape into the outer space. Ji Tianqing was full of surprise and silently sighed with emotion. Of course, he knew that after the devil emperor died, no one could control the great Yin soul-severing ruler. This kind of divine weapon was psychic. Of course, it would leave this place and return to its master's side. Ji Tianqing was only somewhat puzzled. He thought to himself, I wonder who the master of this divine ruler is? How did the devil emperor get that divine ruler? Soon, he collected his thoughts and turned to fly back to Central Continent City. While flying high in the sky, he looked down at the ground below and observed the situation on the battlefield. He saw that outside the north gate of Central Continent City, more than 800,000 devil race troops had stopped their attack and were resting on the wasteland. Near the north gate, more than 1 million human soldiers were also guarding the city walls and defensive formations, waiting for battle. Only near the east gate, more than 1 million devil race soldiers were still madly attacking the east gate. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing took out a pile of tattered robes, armor fragments, and black scales from his spatial ring, as well as 2 pairs of broken black wings. These were all the devil emperor's belongings. When the devil emperor was blasted to pieces by the 9 heavens' divine lightning, he had intentionally picked up these fragments for other purposes. Shwa! Ji Tianqing's figure flickered, and he quickly crossed 1,000 li of the sky and flew to the north gate, above the head of the devil race army. The 800,000 devil race soldiers immediately saw his figure and sensed his powerful aura. Countless devil race soldiers raised their heads to the sky, furiously glaring at him as they let out war cries. On the north gate, the imperial tutor, the commanders, and countless human soldiers also saw his figure. When they saw him return safe and sound, they immediately revealed looks of disbelief and cheered with joy. Ji Tianqing stood proudly in the sky, exuding a domineering aura as if he was a deity. He looked down at the devil race army below him and shouted in a dignified tone, "The ancient devil emperor has been executed by my sword. All devil race soldiers, Lay down your weapons and surrender immediately. Otherwise, kill without mercy. His voice was like the 9 heavens' divine lightning, exploding in the sky and spreading thousands of li away. Within a radius of 1,000 miles, everyone heard it loud and clear. With that, he waved his hand and threw the robes, armor fragments, scales, and black wings into the devil race army. As a series of muffled thumps rang out, countless devilish soldiers turned pale with fright, and they began to roar and curse in a frenzied manner. No one was willing to believe his words, much less accept this result. However, when the devil race soldiers saw the fragments and broken wings with their own eyes, they immediately recognized that they were the Devil Emperor's belongings. Those fragments and wings contained the Devil Emperor's aura and could not be faked. Ji Tianqing had returned safe and sound, but the Devil Emperor was nowhere to be seen. All that was left were these charred fragments. No matter how much the devil race soldiers worshipped the Devil Emperor, they had to accept this fact. Instantly, the 800,000 devil race soldiers were in an uproar, erupting into earth-shattering discussions, roars, and curses. In fact, many devil race soldiers even burst into tears and knelt on the ground, kowtowing non-stop. Near the northern city gate, the Emperor's preceptor and the other commanders all revealed shocked expressions when they saw this scene. They widened their eyes in disbelief. No one dared to believe that Ji Tianqing had actually killed the Devil Emperor. That was the reincarnation of an ancient demon seed, the ancient Devil Emperor who had dominated the continent for thousands of years and was almost immortal. This was a miracle that had never happened in the past tens of thousands of years. Chapter 1449. The million human soldiers guarding the northern part of the city cheered excitedly, loudly shouting Ji Tianqing's name. Countless soldiers looked up at him with adoration in their eyes. They were so excited that they danced with joy. Whether it was 1,000 years ago or in the past 2 years, the Demon Emperor had wreaked havoc in the Central Plains, bringing great suffering to the human race. All of the humans hated the Demon Emperor to the bone, but they also feared him. Now that the Demon Emperor had been killed by Ji Tianqing, the shackles on everyone's hearts had finally been removed. The human soldiers saw the dawn of victory, so of course they were overjoyed, their spirits raised. The cheers of the million soldiers gathered into a mighty sound wave that spread through Central Plains City. Very soon, the human army garrisoned in the city, as well as the soldiers guarding the city gates, all learned of this news. Immediately, the entire Central Plains City boiled with excitement. Millions of humans were overjoyed, letting out world-shaking cheers and shouts. Everyone's hearts were filled with pleasant surprise, shock, and disbelief. Their worship of Ji Tianqing reached the peak. The million demon army attacking the Eastern Gate also quickly learned of this news. When this news spread through the army, countless demon soldiers were stunned, as if they had been petrified, their bodies frozen in shock. They could not accept this fact, roaring in anger and despair, crying and cursing. The million demon army no longer had any fighting spirit. They quickly stopped their attack and retreated like a tide. The army's formation became chaotic. Many demon soldiers still had not recovered from their shock, crying and wailing in despair. The same scene played out outside the northern gate. The 800,000-strong army was thrown into a panic. Many commanders and warriors howled and howled in despair. They were utterly defeated, countless people turning around and fleeing in panic. The Demon Emperor had already fallen. The demon army had lost their leader. They only wanted to flee back to the demon camp as quickly as possible. There was still a demon army of close to 10 million there, and the ancestor demon god was also in the camp. As long as they fled back to the demon camp, they could still rally their forces. Under the leadership of the ancestral demon god, they still had hope of breaking through Central State City and slaughtering all the human soldiers to take revenge for the demon emperor. However, Ji Tianqing stood proudly in the sky. His voice was as loud as a bell as he ordered in a dignified tone. Open the city gates and pursue the demon race army with all our might. We absolutely cannot let them escape alive. At this moment, the demon race army was retreating in panic, and their morale was at its lowest. Of course, this was also the best time for the human race army to counterattack. When Ji Tianqing's majestic and domineering voice reverberated throughout the area, the imperial tutor and the other human commanders immediately opened the north gate of the city. Countless human soldiers rushed out of Central Continent City like a tide, loudly shouting as they began to charge. Ji Tianqing took the lead and rushed to the sky above the devil race army, releasing all kinds of powerful secret techniques, bombarding the devil race soldiers on the ground. The 800,000 demon soldiers had long been scared out of their wits. They were in a panic, and it was very difficult for them to calmly counterattack and defend. In a short 100 breaths of time, more than half of the demon race army had been slaughtered by Ji Tianqing. There were only 300,000 left. At this time, 1,000,000 human soldiers rushed out of Central Continent City, crossing the wasteland like a gust of wind, chasing after the 300,000 remnants of the demon race army. Ji Tianqing turned around and left, flying towards the east gate as fast as lightning. Under his orders, Xiao Han opened the east gate, also leading several 100,000 human soldiers to chase after the retreating demon race army. Ever since the demon race started the war 2 years ago, the human race had always been in a passive state of defense. It was like this in the northern battlefield, and it was also like this in Heaven Dragon Pass. In the end, at the critical juncture of life and death, the human race could only hole up in Central Continent City, relying on the defensive array to resist the demon race's invasion. Now, the demon emperor had been killed, and the demon race army had fled in defeat. The human race soldiers could finally hold their heads high. They valiantly charged out of Central Continent City in high spirits, chasing after the demon race army like a hot knife through butter. This kind of carefree change in status and situation made the blood of the human race soldiers boil, their morale soaring. As time passed, the two armies got further and further away from Central Continent City. They had already chased for 2,000 li. The demon race army's numbers were constantly decreasing. More than half of them were nibbled away by the human race soldiers. According to the current situation, before the demon race could escape back to the main camp, they would be slaughtered to the last. On the contrary, the human race army's numbers were constantly increasing, gradually reaching 3 million. The Golden Dragon Emperor led the water race soldiers to assist in the battle, pincer attacking the demon race army from the sides. The demon race army suffered disastrous casualties, almost falling into a desperate situation. The 500,000 survivors could only hold on for an hour at most before they were all killed. Ji Tianqing had the imperial tutor and the human race commanders command the army to encircle and annihilate the demon race. He rushed alone 1,000 li away to assist the heavenly net demon emperor and the demon race army. The demon emperor led the demon race army, fighting fiercely with the demon race army. The battle was incomparably bitter. When Ji Tianqing arrived at the battlefield, the mountains and rivers in a radius of 200 to 300 li were covered in corpses, blood flowing like a river. The demon race army still had more than 700,000 survivors, but 40% of the demon race soldiers had died in battle, leaving only 600,000 survivors. They were still bitterly holding on. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing immediately took action. He used the meteor fire rain, causing the outer heavens flowing fire to fall from the sky, bombarding the demon race army's battle formation. At least 300,000 demon soldiers, powerful demonic beasts, ghosts, and skeletons were buried in the sea of fire, burned to ashes. The mountains and rivers in a radius of a few dozen li were also burned into a flood of lava by the heavenly fire. Then, he took out the heavenly dipper god fire cauldron, activated the power of the cauldron, and poured torrential flames and violent astral winds into the demon race camp. In just 10 short breaths, another 200,000 demon soldiers were burned to ashes by the heavenly wind-flowing fire. The demon race army's numbers had been reduced by 80%, leaving only a few 100,000 survivors. They were all scared out of their wits and fled in panic. Several soul-tempering realm blood gods and powerful demon race cultivators were also intimidated by Ji Tianqing's power. They did not dare to get close at all and fled for their lives. Ji Tianqing chased after them and released a sky full of lightning and light swords, quickly killing the blood gods. The demon race army's morale was greatly boosted. They cheered excitedly and launched a counterattack and pursuit. The remaining few 100,000 demon soldiers were slaughtered by the demon race army after fleeing for 400 to 500 li. The demon race's crisis was finally resolved. The heavenly net demon emperor flew from the sky and landed in front of Ji Tianqing. He greeted Ji Tianqing and asked him about the situation at middle ground anxiously. When he learned that the demon emperor had been killed and the demon race army had been completely defeated, he was instantly shocked and inexplicably horrified. He had never thought that Ji Tianqing would have such terrifying power to create such a shocking feat and kill the ancient demon emperor. After regaining his senses, he was full of praise and admiration for Ji Tianqing. Chapter 1450. The armies of the human, demon, and water races joined forces and rushed to the north to kill the remnants of the demon army. An hour later, Ji Tianqing and the heavenly net demon emperor led the demon army and rushed to the battlefield 4,000 miles north. Ji Tianqing thought that the human and water race armies had already slaughtered the remnants of the demon army. But when he was about to reach the battlefield, he found that the human and water race armies were fighting against the 2 million-strong demon army. The mountains and wastelands in a radius of a few hundred miles were the battlefield. The battlefield was extremely cruel. The armies of both sides were like three torrents that gathered together and clashed fiercely. Flesh and blood splattered all over the battlefield. Broken corpses and bones were everywhere. The ground was dyed red with blood. The soldiers of the various races charged bravely and their battle cries shook the sky. Their morale was high and their fighting spirit was soaring. Damn it! The demon camp actually sent reinforcements? Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing immediately understood that the 2 million-strong demon army had come from the demon camp to provide reinforcements. The news of the demon emperor's death and the defeat of the demon army must have reached the demon camp and summoned reinforcements. The human, demon, and water race armies added up to about 5 million people. They were not afraid of the 2 million-strong demon army. The 5 million soldiers of the three races were divided into three armies and attacked the demon army from three directions. They would definitely have the upper hand and the advantage. However, Ji Tianqing looked to the north and saw a few demon armies coming from the north to provide reinforcements. Those demon armies were at least 3 to 4 million strong. They were like a black tide that covered the mountains and the earth and swept over like a gust of wind. When those reinforcements arrived, the demon army would have the advantage of numbers again. By then, the outcome would be unpredictable. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing's expression turned grave. He muttered to himself, "The demon emperor has been killed by me. This is a huge blow to the demon army's morale." However, the demon camp still has close to 10 million soldiers and the strongest ancestor demon god is holding the fort. I have to kill the ancestor demon god to completely destroy the confidence of the demon army and end this war. Although his next goal was to kill the ancestor demon god, he did not have the slightest confidence. The ancestral fiend god was the ancestor of the demon race. 30,000 years ago, the ancestral fiend god had dominated the world and killed countless gods. He was known as the death god. Even though the ancestral fiend god had fallen into a deep slumber for 30,000 years before waking up. Having just been reborn, it was impossible for it to have regained its peak strength. It had only reached the primordial spirit realm not too long ago. However, Ji Tianqing knew that the ancestral demonic god was several times stronger than the demonic emperor. She definitely possessed remarkable abilities and was invincible in this world. He was already lucky to be able to kill the devil emperor, so how could he kill the ancestral fiend god as well? That was a fool's dream, a wild fantasy. No, I have to think of a way to deal with the ancestral demon god. Even if I can't defeat it, I have to restrain it. I definitely can't let it kill its way into Central Continent City. Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows as he pondered with a solemn expression. At this moment, the situation on the battlefield changed again. The armies of the three races joined forces to besiege the army of the devil race. However, in the camp of the devil race, a huge combined attack array appeared. The large array with a radius of 30 miles was controlled by 4 blood gods in the soul refinement realm. Hundreds of demon kings led hundreds of thousands of devil race soldiers to provide power for the large array. The battle array was activated and devoured the blood, souls, and demonic clouds in a radius of a few hundred miles. It condensed into hundreds of blood-red demonic eyes that hung high in the sky. Without a doubt, this demonic array was created by the demonic emperor. It had always been used to protect the camp of the devil race. Now, the devil race army had modified this array and used it in the battle between the two armies. It had a strong deterrent force. Under the control of the 4 blood gods, the hundreds of blood-red demonic eyes released blood-red light pillars that covered the sky and blasted towards the surrounding armies of the three races. Following a series of loud booms, several huge gaps were blasted open in the formation of the three races. At least 80,000 soldiers of the human race, water race, and demon race were killed by the dozens of blood-red light pillars. Seeing this, the heavenly net demon emperor and the golden dragon emperor were enraged. They rushed towards the devil race's camp with murderous intent, wanting to destroy the demonic array together. However, before they could rush into the demon race's camp, they were blasted away by dozens of light pillars flying towards them. The power of each light pillar was comparable to the attack of an immortal soul realm powerhouse. It was enough to threaten the Golden Dragon Emperor and the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor. The two of them were beaten into a sorry state. Their hair was disheveled, and they had suffered minor injuries. The four blood gods controlled the demonic eyes to release crisscrossing light pillars that blasted into the camp of the three races. Boom, boom, boom. The blood-colored pillar of light exploded, bursting forth with destructive power, raising several mountain peaks to the ground. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers were killed on the spot. Seeing this, the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor and the Golden Dragon Emperor were furious. They waved their swords again and rushed towards the combined array. However, dozens of blood-red light pillars blasted towards them, shattering their swords and sending them flying. The two of them could not get close to the array for the time being. Their hearts were filled with anger and anxiety, but there was nothing they could do. At this moment, Ji Tianxing finally arrived. He used the divine concealment step and remained invisible. He silently rushed into the devil race's army. While the four blood gods were killing the three races, he brazenly launched an attack. Piercing sword. He held the sword of burial of heaven and stabbed at the center of the combined array with all his might. That area was the peak of a mountain. Dozens of demon kings sat cross-legged on the peak, channeling their powers. Without a doubt, that was the core area of the combined array. It was also the foundation of the array. Boom! A cold light exploded in the middle of the crowd, turning into a huge mushroom cloud, rising from the top of the mountain. In the blink of an eye, the dozens of demon kings were blown to smithereens. The entire mountain was flattened, turning into a huge crater. The combined array was broken just like that. The four blood gods and hundreds of thousands of devil race soldiers were shocked and terrified. Ji Tianxing appeared in the open and stood in the sky above the devil race army. He looked down expressionlessly and took out the heavenly dipper god fire cauldron. He channeled his powers and activated the power of the god fire cauldron. Heavenly wind flowing fire. The god fire cauldron flew into the sky and expanded to the size of a house. It poured out an earth-shattering fire that poured onto the ground like a flood. Instantly, more than 300,000 devil race soldiers were drowned in the sea of fire. They screamed in pain and struggled. The valley and 2 mountains within 100 miles melted in the endless fire, turning into a torrent of lava. More than 300,000 devil race soldiers were also burned to ashes. Not even their bones were left. The surrounding demon race army was scared out of their wits, and they fled in panic. Chapter 1451. Originally, the demons could still stand firm and defend and counterattack in an orderly manner. However, Ji Tianxing appeared and destroyed the combined attack array with lightning speed. He even slaughtered more than 300,000 demon soldiers. The situation of the battle changed immediately. The 2 million demon soldiers fled in fear again. They had no choice. Ji Tianxing had killed the ancient demon emperor and left an indelible shadow and fear in the hearts of the demons. Seeing the demon army fleeing to the north, Ji Tianxing immediately gave chase. The armies of the 3 clans also hurriedly followed, shouting as they charged forward. Soul slash! Ji Tianxing roared as a murderous aura surged from his body. A huge golden sword shadow appeared behind him. It was a giant golden sword that was 10,000 feet tall. It was his essence soul Dhamma power. Under the control of his divine telekinesis, the giant golden sword split into thousands of 3-meter-long golden sword rays. Swish! 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 The thousands of golden swords flew out and formed a golden sword net with a radius of 10 miles according to a specific order and pattern. The sword net enveloped thousands of demon soldiers and emitted a dazzling golden light. The crisscrossing golden swords flew back and forth as fast as lightning, killing those demon soldiers. Swish! 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 In a short while, thousands of demon soldiers were killed by the sword net and scattered on the ruins that were full of holes and cracks. Then, the golden sword net turned into a golden hurricane and swept toward the devil race's camp. Swish! 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 Wherever the golden hurricane swept, the ground cracked and the mountains collapsed, turning into ruins and dust. No matter what realm the devil race soldiers were in, none of them were spared and were directly crushed into dregs. Under Ji Tianxing's control, the golden hurricane rampaged between the mountains and rivers, killing the demon army. In just 20 seconds, More than 100,000 demon soldiers were killed. The demon army was even more terrified. They screamed and roared in fear. Seeing this, the four blood gods clones rushed over to attack Ji Tianqing in anger, trying to resolve the crisis of the demon army. More than 20 demon generals also attacked Ji Tianqing from all directions. Ji Tianqing was surrounded, but he was fearless. He brandished the sword of burial of heaven in his hand, slashing out sword lights that blotted out the sky and covered the earth as he fought with the crowd. Hundreds and thousands of golden sword lights were imbued with the power of the purple divine thunder. The golden light blotted out the sky, and the sword qi crisscrossed. Pang! 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 Deafening noises reverberated in the sky. Before long, more than 20 devil race generals were killed clean by Ji Tianqing. The four soul-refining realm blood god sons were also severely injured by the lightning swords and fled in panic. Ji Tianqing chased after them. His figure flickered, and after a few breaths, he killed the four blood gods' illusions. When the devil army saw that their commander and general had been killed, they became even more frightened and ran for their lives. Ji Tianqing led the armies of the three races and chased after them with murderous intent, wantonly slaughtering the devil army. Without a powerhouse at the level of the demon emperor, no one could resist his divine power. At this moment, he was like a peerless god of death. No one could defeat him, and he could cover the sky with one hand. He alone could stop 1,000,000 soldiers and dominate the entire battlefield. Unknowingly, 45 minutes had passed. More than half of the 2 million demon army was slaughtered after fleeing for 300 miles in fear and despair. Only about 600,000 were left, and they fell into deep despair. However, at this moment, the reinforcements of the demon army from the demon army camp finally met up with them. Nearly 4 million demon army rushed to the battlefield and immediately started fighting with the armies of the three races. The momentum of the armies of the three races was blocked, and they were at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. The situation of the battle became tense again. However, although the demon army was large in number, there were no essence soul powerhouses overseeing it. Ji Tianqing, the Golden Dragon Emperor, and the Skynet Demon Emperor swept across the entire battlefield in an invincible manner, wantonly slaughtering the demon army. In the Tianxian continent, Essence Soul Supremes were the strongest powerhouses and also the most terrifying combat power. Powerhouses at the level of Ji Tianqing and the Demon Emperor could destroy 1,000,000 elite soldiers by themselves. Both sides started a fierce battle in the lofty mountains and steep ridges, fighting until the sky darkened and the sun and moon lost their light. Demonic qi and blood fog soared into the sky, sealing off the sky within a radius of 1,000 miles. All kinds of colorful magical radiance flickered in the dusky sky. Deafening sounds of collision and battle cries reverberated between heaven and earth, spreading to a radius of 1,000 miles. This tragic and bloody battle lasted for more than 2 hours before it gradually came to an end. The result was indisputable. The demon army was defeated. With Ji Tianqing present, how could the demon army not be defeated when he could slaughter 1,000,000 soldiers by himself? Of the nearly 4 million demon army, more than 3 million had died in battle. Only 800,000 were left, fleeing toward the north in fear and despair. Of the 3 million demon soldiers who died, half were killed by Ji Tianqing, the Golden Dragon Emperor, and the Skynet Demon Emperor. The demon army was defeated because they did not have essence soul powerhouses overseeing it. The previous scene played out once again. More than half of the 800,000 demon survivors fled toward the demon army camp like stray dogs. The armies of the three races pursued the demon army with high morale, heading straight for the demon army camp. About an hour later, both sides finally arrived at the demon army camp. The mountain range in front of them was shrouded in thick black fog and demon clouds. The mountain peaks and the ground were pitch black and cold. Countless tunnels and demon caves were dug underground, containing a shocking amount of demonic qi of death. Only 200,000 people were lucky enough to escape back to the demon army camp, and all of them were riddled with scars and looked extremely miserable. The armies of the three races were about to charge into the demon army camp and kill all the remaining demon soldiers before attacking and destroying the demon army camp. However, Ji Tianqing, the Golden Dragon Emperor, and the Skynet Demon Emperor sensed a great danger. Their expressions changed immediately, and they ordered the armies to stop. The armies of the three races immediately stopped outside the demon army camp and got into an offensive formation. They looked at the demon army camp vigilantly. All they could see was that the mountains and rivers within a radius of 1,000 miles were filled with black figures, densely packed together like an ocean. They were countless demon soldiers, wearing pitch-black armor and robes, the same color as the mountains and earth. If one did not look carefully, it would be difficult to spot them. Millions of demon soldiers had already gotten into formation at the edge of the demon army camp and were waiting for battle. All of the demon soldiers were fully armed, and their bodies were filled with a strong killing intent. Their eyes were burning with anger and hatred. As long as the demon army commander gave the order, the millions of demon soldiers would explode with their strongest attack and fight to the death with the armies of the three races. Without a doubt, the news of the demon emperor's death and the demon army's defeat had already reached the demon army camp. Chapter 1452. The armies of the three races stared at the demon race's main camp. They were 100 miles away from the demon race's main camp and were in a silent standoff. The eyes of the soldiers on both sides were filled with killing intent that soared to the heavens. The Golden Dragon Emperor and Tianluo Demon Emperor hurriedly flew to Ji Tianxing's side and discussed with him telepathically. Tianxing, the demon race's main camp must be heavily fortified. The demon race's main camp must be well prepared. Our armies have already been fighting for several hours. Our soldiers are exhausted. If we charge in like this, we will suffer a great loss. There should only be about 5 million soldiers left in the demon race's main camp. Although our armies are exhausted, the soldiers' morale is high. This is the best time to attack. With the three of us here, we should be able to destroy the entire camp. However, the ancestor fiend god has yet to appear. Is he plotting something? The Golden Dragon Emperor and Tianluo Demon Emperor suggested retreating and resting, while the other suggested attacking. However, the final decision still depended on Ji Tianxing's opinion. Since the emperor was not present, Ji Tianxing was the spiritual leader and supreme commander of the human race. Ji Tianxing stood high in the sky and observed for a while. Then he said to the Golden Dragon Emperor and Tianluo Demon Emperor, "The demon race's main camp is indeed heavily fortified. We should not attack rashly. After all, it was not easy for us to kill the demon emperor and defeat the demon race's army of millions. Victory is about to be ushered in. At this critical juncture, we cannot let victory get to our heads. We must be more careful." The Golden Dragon Emperor nodded in agreement. That's right. The demon race has always been cunning and vicious. The demon emperor is dead and we have already killed our way to the demon race's main camp, but the ancestor fiend god has yet to appear. I think the ancestor fiend god must be up to something. Tianluo Demon Emperor saw that the two of them were unwilling to attack. He thought for a while and nodded. It's good to let the soldiers rest for a while. The ancestor fiend god is an ancient fiend god who has slaughtered countless gods. He is terrifyingly powerful. Even if he has just been reborn and his strength has not recovered to its peak, he will still be difficult to deal with. Thus, the three of them ordered the various armies to rest and reorganize. After the order was passed down, the soldiers of the three races began to rest. Many of the injured soldiers also began to bandage and treat their wounds, taking medicinal pills to treat their injuries. What was strange was that the millions of troops in the demon race's camp were still holding their ground, showing no intention of attacking. This made Ji Tianxing and the other two even more certain that the ancestral fiend Celestial was definitely plotting something. While the soldiers were resting, the three of them spread out and carefully observed the situation in the demon camp. Ji Tianxing used the divine concealment step and stepped into the demon clan's camp in an invisible state. Shuttling through the demonic clouds and mist, he released his divine sense to cover a radius of 400 miles to check the situation underground. Through observation, he found that there were not many abyss devils left in the underground tunnels and nests. The vast majority of the demon race soldiers had gathered on the ground, preparing for battle. An hour later, he entered the depths of the devil race's camp and was attacked by the defensive formation. Hundreds of blood-red eyeballs lurked in the demonic clouds high in the sky, releasing all kinds of magic attacks like a rain of arrows. All of a sudden, the sky was illuminated by the blood-red light that covered the sky for hundreds of kilometers. Ji Tianxing hurriedly closed his golden wings to protect himself. Bam 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 bam. A series of loud explosions erupted, and he was sent flying, revealing his figure. Although the golden wings had blocked all the attacks, he was not injured. But his whereabouts were exposed, and he was immediately attacked by countless abyss devils. At the foot of a nearby mountain, there were more than 300,000 abyss devils in a defensive formation. More than 100,000 of them joined forces to form a battle formation, releasing powerful blood-red light, soul fire, and all kinds of secret techniques to attack him. There were more than a dozen Heaven Origin Realm Abyss Devils who joined forces to use secret techniques of the Devil Dao to attack him. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he immediately released a powerful killer move to start the massacre. Star-shattering fist. He swung his fists, and two huge golden fist shadows slammed into the mountain below. Boom boom. Only to hear two earth-shattering explosions, the mountain collapsed on the spot, turning into endless dust, rising into the sky and covering the sun. The area within a radius of dozens of miles was blasted into a huge crater by the fist shadows, like an abyss. The destructive power killed more than 100,000 Abyss Devils on the spot. And the Abyss Devil's attack was shattered by the two fist shadows, instantly dissolving. Ji Tianqing took out the Sword of Burial of Heaven again and charged toward the dozen Abyss Devils, slashing out a sword light that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. After a series of fierce clashes, he killed all the dozen Abyss Devils like a gust of wind sweeping away fallen leaves. Following that, he used all kinds of secret techniques to slaughter the remaining 100,000 Abyss Devils. This was an unfair battle. The Abyss Devils had more than 300,000 people, but Ji Tianqing faced them alone. But the final result was exactly the opposite. The Abyss Devils could not do anything to Ji Tianqing at all, and could not hurt him at all. But he killed more than 300,000 Abyss Devils in a short span of 100 breaths. Such a terrifying aura caused the surrounding demon race army to tremble in fear and alarm. And this was under the condition that the Abyss Devils were constantly attacking him, forcing him to divert his attention to block the attacks of the Abyss Devils. If not for the hundreds of Abyss Devils, he would only need a dozen breaths at most to kill all 300,000 Abyss Devils. At the same time, the commotion caused by Ji Tianqing and the Abyss Devils' battle alarmed both sides. The three armies stopped resting, and under the leadership of the Golden Dragon Emperor and the Skynet Demon Emperor, they charged into the Abyss Devils' encampment like a gust of wind. Millions of Abyss Devils immediately went out to meet the enemy, blocking the three armies' attack. In a short while, the two armies met, and an intense battle unfolded in the Abyss Devils' encampment. The final battle that would decide the outcome of the battle thus began. And Ji Tianqing was the fuse that ignited the flames of war. The two armies fought in the mountains and on the ground, and their shouts shook the heavens. Blood flowed like rivers, and corpses piled up like mountains. Ji Tianqing, the Golden Dragon Emperor, and the Skynet Demon Emperor stood proudly in the sky, unleashing all kinds of secret techniques to kill the Abyss Devils below. At the same time, the three of them worked together to block the attacks of the hundreds of Abyss Devils, protecting the three armies. After an hour, the Abyss Devils' numbers were sharply reduced, and they could no longer resist the attacks, retreating into the depths of the encampment. At this moment, a muffled rumbling sound came from the depths of the Abyss Devils' encampment. That kind of sound and movement was like rolling thunder exploding in the ground. The earth in a radius of a few hundred miles shook violently. More than 10,000 feet tall mountains collapsed one after another, turning into ruins. Chapter 1453. Ji Tianqing did not need to guess to know that the ancestral fiend Celestial was the only one who could cause such a huge commotion. He looked into the depths of the demon's camp and muttered with a grave expression, "Is the ancestral fiend Celestial finally coming out?" He had understood the situation after coming out of seclusion. The ancestral fiend Celestial had already been reborn when the Heaven Dragon Pass was breached. That was 2 months ago when the ancestral fiend Celestial had already condensed his Dharma body. However, the ancestral fiend Celestial had not appeared in the past 2 months. Even when the demonic emperor led his army to attack the Middle State City, the ancestral fiend Celestial remained in the demon's camp and did not make a move. Ji Tianqing guessed that the ancestral fiend Celestial had not made a move because he was recuperating in the demon's camp and quickly recovering his strength. After all, when the ancestral fiend Celestial was reborn, he was only at the first or second tier of the primordial soul realm. This bit of strength was not even comparable to the demonic emperor and could not lead the entire demons, much less be the ancestral fiend Celestial. Most importantly, such strength was not enough to defeat the armies of the three races and unify the entire Tianxian continent. Therefore, the ancestral fiend Celestial must have used some secret technique or divine ability to quickly recover his strength. Just as these thoughts flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind, a certain mountain in the depths of the demon race's camp exploded with a boom. The entire mountain collapsed and shattered, turning into an endless amount of gravel and dust that splashed out in all directions. A huge dark purple pillar of light rushed out from the depths of the ground, piercing through the dust and flying high into the sky. Ji Tianqing subconsciously raised his head to look. He saw a pitch-black mountain peak towering in the sky, thousands of feet high. No, that was not a mountain, but a pitch-black fiend celestial. It had a body thousands of feet tall and was as majestic as a mountain. It had 3 heads, 6 arms and 8 black wings. A layer of hazy purple light enveloped its body, emitting a mysterious and powerful energy. Its 6 huge purple eyes looked down at the land thousands of miles below, revealing a cold and emotionless gaze. In its eyes, the 4 million devil warriors and over 3 million human warriors, spirit beasts, and aquatic warriors were all like ants. Roar! It opened its mouth full of fangs and let out an earth-shattering roar. Instantly, the land within a few hundred miles started to tremble. The terrifying sound waves caused the surrounding mountains to collapse one after another, shattering them into ruins all over the ground. An invisible energy that covered the sky and covered the land to suppress the land within a few hundred miles. The soldiers of the Devil Clan and the 3 clans in this area were immediately suppressed and filled with fear, revealing an incomparably terrified expression. Even Ji Tianqing, the Golden Dragon Emperor, and the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor were shocked, and their expressions turned grave. What a terrifying pressure! This power has already surpassed the demonic emperor. The ancestral fiend celestial. Just as the 3 of them were filled with shock and amazement, the 4 million demon soldiers retreated like the tide and rushed towards the ancestral fiend celestial. Ji Tianqing, the Golden Dragon Emperor, and the other 2 were considering whether to let the 3 armies chase after them. At this moment, a scene that surprised and shocked everyone appeared. Millions of demon soldiers rushed to the ancestral fiend celestial surroundings and knelt down to worship it. Then, all of them knelt on the ground and closed their eyes, chanting the incantation of the demon race with a devout expression. They even relaxed their bodies and opened their arms. The posture of the demon soldiers looked like they were worshipping the ancestral fiend celestial, but it also looked like they were performing some kind of ritual. However, after careful observation, Ji Tianqing found a suspicious point. The 4 million demon soldiers did not show any fanatical expressions of worship. Their expressions and voices were heavy and solemn, and they also contained a strong sense of solemnity and solemnity. What are these demon soldiers doing? Ji Tianqing frowned in confusion, feeling more and more puzzled. The Golden Dragon Emperor and the Skynet Demon Emperor also stared at the actions of the demon army and secretly communicated with each other. At this moment, the ancestral fiend celestial in the sky slowly opened its 6 huge arms and the 8 wide wings on its back. Its entire body lit up with a rich purple light, bursting forth with an incomparably strong and evil power. On the ground below, the demon soldiers that were closer to it were instantly ignited with blood-red flames. In a short while, the bodies of those demon soldiers were turned into ashes in the blood-red flames, condensing into balls of blood-red light. At least 300,000 demon soldiers were burned to death by the blood-red flames, turning into black ashes that scattered on the ground. The blood-red balls of light that blotted out the sky flew into the sky and entered the ancestral fiend celestial's body like a blood-red tide. Following that, batch after batch of devil soldiers ignited with blood-red flames, and their bodies turned into ashes. The dark red flames lit up the gloomy sky, covering a few hundred miles in a blood-red color. As the blood-red flames continued to spread outwards, more and more demon soldiers died. The blood-red balls of light in the sky also became denser, converging into a blood-red current that blotted out the sky, drilling into the ancestral fiend celestial's body. The ancestral fiend celestial swallowed countless blood-red balls of light, and the purple light that enveloped its body became even more intense, gradually turning black. Its aura became even more evil and mysterious, and its power also increased rapidly. Not far away, a vanguard of the human army that was closer to it had more than 30,000 people. They did not have time to dodge or retreat, and their bodies started to burn, emitting blood-red flames. In a few breaths' time, more than 30,000 human soldiers were burned to ashes. Their blood, chi, essence, and power gathered into balls of blood-red light that flew towards the ancestral fiend celestial. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing and the Golden Dragon Emperor's expressions changed drastically, as they understood the ancestral fiend celestial's intentions. I understand now. The 4 million demon soldiers are sacrificing their lives to increase the ancestral fiend celestial's power. Heavens! This is a sacrifice. The 4 million demon soldiers are using an evil sacrificial ceremony to offer their lives and power to the Grim Reaper. If I remember correctly, this is probably the ancestral god sacrificial ceremony from ancient myths and legends. Hearing the Golden Dragon Emperor's exclamation, Ji Tianqing and the Heavenly Demon Emperor turned to look at him and asked, "What is the ancestral god sacrificial ceremony?" The Golden Dragon Emperor's expression was gloomy, and he said in a grave tone, "The ancestral god sacrificial ceremony is an ancient sacrificial ceremony from ancient myths and legends. Some races that rely on their bloodline to pass down their power, and their ancestors or leaders can use this ancient sacrificial ceremony to devour the power of their descendants and rapidly increase their strength. The ancestral fiend celestial is the ancestor of all demons, and the 4 million demon soldiers are its bloodline descendants. In a sense, the lives of the demon soldiers were given by the ancestral fiend celestial." Chapter 1454. After hearing the Golden Dragon Emperor's explanation, Ji Tianqing and the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor's expressions changed. Without a doubt, the ancestral god sacrificial ritual that originated from ancient times was a powerful and evil ritual. The Heavenly Net Demon Emperor frowned and asked the Golden Dragon Emperor, "Dragon Emperor, I have never heard of the ancestral god sacrificial ritual. How do you know so much about it?" The Golden Dragon Emperor glanced at him and said solemnly, "Don't forget that the Dragon Clan of the East Sea also relies on bloodline power and divine abilities. In ancient times, the ancestors of the Dragon Clan also used this ritual during the War of the Gods." The Heavenly Net Demon Emperor was enlightened and nodded. "I see." Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment. He asked with some doubt, "Dragon Emperor, you said that this ancestral god sacrificial ritual devours the power of all its descendants. It's normal for the ancestral fiend god to devour the power of the demon army. But those 30,000 soldiers have no bloodline connection with the ancestral fiend god. Why were they devoured by the ancestral fiend god?" The Golden Dragon Emperor was also stunned by this question. He frowned and thought for a moment before shaking his head. "I'm not sure about this either. After all, the ancestral fiend god is an ancient fiend god and an extremely powerful existence. Perhaps it has a different understanding of the ancestral god sacrificial ritual and can unleash a greater power." While the three of them were discussing this question, the ancestral god sacrificial ritual continued. More and more demon soldiers' bodies and souls were burning, emitting blood-red flames. Endless blood-red balls of light flew into the sky and poured into the ancestral fiend god's body. The ancestral fiend god's power grew stronger and stronger. The invisible power it released also began to spread outwards. The nearby soldiers had no idea what was going on. Their bodies were burning with blood-red flames and they were quickly devoured by the ancestral fiend god. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing and the Golden Dragon Emperor hurriedly ordered the three armies to quickly retreat from the demon camp and hide as far away as possible. Many of the soldiers were shocked by this strange scene. Their hearts were filled with doubt and fear. Hearing the orders of Ji Tianqing and the other two, all the officers and soldiers retreated without hesitation, fleeing out of the devil camp as fast as they could. Not long after, the soldiers of the three clans fled to a safe area. For the time being, their lives would not be in danger. The ancestral demon god had also devoured more than 1 million demons of the devil race's army. Its strength had already increased by 3 times, and it was still increasing. Upon seeing this, Ji Tianqing frowned and said with a solemn expression, "Once the ancestral fiend celestial completes the ancestral god ritual and devours the 4 million strong fiend army, its strength will definitely reach the peak of the essence soul realm. It might even break through to the 9th tribulation realm. By that time, no one in the entire Tianxian land will be able to resist it. We will all lose without a doubt." Golden Dragon Emperor shook his head and said firmly, "Tianqing, even if the ancestral fiend celestial completes the ancestral god ritual, she can only reach the limits of the essence soul realm at most. It's impossible for her to break through to the 9th tribulation realm. Once she reaches the 9th tribulation realm, she will immediately attract the first heavenly tribulation. This is very dangerous for her. It's very likely that she will lose her life during the heavenly tribulation." Heavenly Net Demon Emperor added, "Even if she can't reach the 9th tribulation realm, she will be invincible on the continent once her strength recovers to the 9th firmament essence soul realm. Even if the 3 of us join forces, we won't be her match. The armies of the 3 clans will also be slaughtered by her. The entire continent will fall." Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a solemn expression, "We have to stop her. We can't let her complete the ancestral god ritual." With that said, he turned and flew toward the ancestral fiend celestial. He held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands and slashed with all his might. Heaven-splitting sword. The 10,000-foot-long golden sword contained surging Zedian lightning as it slammed toward the ancestral fiend celestial. The ancestral fiend celestial's 6 eyes were still tightly shut as she spread her 6 arms and 8 wings. She greedily devoured the sanguine light that filled the sky, as though she didn't notice Ji Tianqing's attack at all. Only when the golden sword was in front of her and was about to strike her did she suddenly stretch out her 2 arms and grab the golden sword with her cold, dark palms. The golden sword's might could be said to be apocalyptic, but it was unable to break free from the ancestral fiend celestial's grip. The ancestral fiend celestial's palms shook forcefully, causing the 10,000-foot-long sword to shatter with a series of cracking sounds. Ji Tianqing's all-out attack was easily resolved by the ancestral fiend celestial. This scene shocked Ji Tianqing, Golden Dragon Emperor, and Heavenly Net Demon Emperor. Their expressions turned even more solemn. Ji Tianqing was filled with indignation. He used all his strength and used an ultimate mystic technique. 7 Stars Sword. He brandished the sword of burial of heaven with all his might and stabbed out 7 sword beams at the ancestral fiend celestial's 3 heads. However, the ancestral fiend celestial stood tall in the sky and had no intention of dodging. When the 7 sword beams were about to hit its heads, it used a dazzling dark purple light to condense into a wide barrier in front of it. Bam bam bam. The 7 sword beams pierced the purple barrier, causing a series of loud noises. The purple light barrier was unscathed, but the 7 sword lights exploded with a bang, splashing in all directions. Ji Tianqing's ultimate mystic technique was easily resolved by the ancestral fiend celestial again. Even if he used all his strength and unleashed his strongest attack, he could not do anything to the ancestral fiend celestial. The difference in strength between the two was too great. Golden Dragon Emperor and Heavenly Net Demon Emperor originally wanted to assist Ji Tianqing and attack the ancestral fiend celestial together. Seeing this scene, the 2 of them immediately changed their minds. The 2 of them brandished their divine swords and slashed out sword beams at the demon army on the ground below. This method was not bad. If they could kill a large number of demon army soldiers, they could disrupt the ancestral god ritual and weaken the ancestral fiend celestial's power. However, when the sword beams were about to hit the demon army, they were blocked by a layer of invisible force. That was the ancestral fiend celestial's power. It condensed into a defensive layer that protected a radius of 300 miles. Bam bam bam. Amidst a series of loud noises, the sword light that filled the sky also shattered with a bang, turning into fragments that scattered everywhere. The 2 of them were unwilling to give up and repeatedly used a few more ultimate mystic techniques to attack the many demon army soldiers. However, the result was the same. Their attacks were all blocked by the invisible defensive layer, and they could not hurt the demon army at all. The 3 of them were filled with helplessness, and a trace of despair grew in their hearts. Golden Dragon Emperor and Heavenly Net Demon Emperor hurriedly flew to Ji Tianqing's side and discussed anxiously. The ancestral fiend celestial is too powerful. We can't do anything to it at all. If we can't do anything to it now, when it completes the ancestral god ritual and becomes several times stronger, the consequences will be unimaginable. Tianqing, you have a better understanding of the demon race and killed the ancient demon emperor with your own hands. Do you have any way to deal with the ancestral fiend celestial? Ji Tianqing looked at the ancestral fiend celestial gloomily. After frowning for a while, he said in a low voice, "The ancestral fiend celestial's power is beyond our imagination. With the strength of the 3 of us, we can't hurt it at all." You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.